Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Was Locked in Tomb and Was the Scorpion Emperor Part 4. Chapter 27. Issei let out a loud groan of pain, then vomited up blood and bile all over his naked chest. He let out a small moan of pain and opened his eyes blurry and filled with blood. He felt a giant hand on his chest, pushing him back down when he tried to sit up. "Stay down, Issei," spoke the voice. Issei recognized it as Zeus. "You are currently in our hospital. You have to relax," he said, and Issei blacked out as the monitors he was hooked up to showed that he was flatlining. Asclepius and his daughter Issei were currently hovering over him, while Ares, Zeus and Athena were in the room looking over the healers. Athena tapped Ares on the shoulder and motioned with her head towards the doors. He nodded and watched as Athena left the room. Athena sat down on the bench outside, smiling at the other occupant of the bench. "Don't want to join us?" "I don't want to see him like that." Artemis spoke very softly. "What happened exactly?" Athena asked. She got a small part from Ares, but not even he knew what happened exactly. "No, Issei came to his bedroom where I was at. My hunters and I were in his bedroom having tea when we came under attack. We were blocked off by the horde of terrorists coming through the hallway. Issei drove himself through them all and took a stand. He told me to hide and keep the other hunters safe, so I hid behind a barrier with the remaining 2 hunters." Issei thought he was stabbed constantly over and over. He was losing the fight but he never gave up. He stood his ground and kept them all at bay. He was stabbed in the heart and was sent to the ground, but he still managed to get back up and kill the bastard who did it. It was then Ares got to us. Athena nodded. "He's going to make it. I know he will." "Maybe he will, but what's the chances he comes out of that hole? Maybe he'll hate me because he was tasked with protecting me by our father." Athena grinned. "Zeus never told him to protect you." That was all Issei. Artemis looked up from her lap at Athena. "Then why would he do that?" "'Cause that's the kind of guy Issei is," Athena said with a smile. Artemis smiled a bit. "He's not like them at all," she said softly. "But he isn't. He's worse," Athena said with a grin. "'Cause now he's in your heart and like a parasite, he's launched onto you and you can't get him away." She snickered. Artemis laughed a bit more joyously, nodding. "I guess he really is worse than a beast. A maggot," she said with a grin. Both of the goddesses laughed together and relaxed against the wall. They went quiet for about 10 minutes when Zeus as well as Ares exited the room. The pair of men approached the goddesses who looked up at the men. "So, Issei is going to make a full recovery, though he'll be out of it for about a week. By that, I mean he'll be weak and will need help moving around. Same with doing anything strenuous like cleaning himself," Zeus said with a sigh. "How did everything come to this?" he said with a frown. It was then Hades came in. "I think I was partially responsible for this, brother," spoke the skeleton. "You? I know you had dealings with the Cows Brigade, but to sell us all out?" Zeus asked, gritting his teeth. "How dare you come here, brother?" Hades sighed. "It was a mistake to get involved with them if I knew what they were going to do here. I would have never dealt with them if I knew. You have to believe me. I just don't like those, you know that," he said. Ares growled. "I should kill you here, and now that boy almost died because of you," he spoke. Zeus looked over at Ares. "I thought you hated him." Ares sighed. "I judged him too harshly and too early. I didn't realize it until I saw him put his own life on the line for us, for someone who hated him. He's more than worthy of being here," Ares admitted. Zeus smiled. "Bringing him here really was a good idea," Zeus said before staring at Hades. "You better make this right. You tell us anything that you know about the Cows Brigade and you do something for isseihyoudou. Do I make myself clear?" Crystal, Hades said, disappearing in his shadow. Zeus sighed and looked down at Artemis. "Are you still mad at me for bringing him here, my daughter?" "No, I like him," the goddess of the hunt admitted. "He's different." Zeus nodded. "Then I will leave it up to you to take care of him for his aftercare." Zeus nodded before disappearing in a bolt of lightning. Ares looked off at the holes in the palace. "Guess I better go and get ready for the counterattack," the god of war said. Athena raised a brow. "Counterattack? More of an assistance. The Norse are currently under their own war, even bigger than what we had. Devils are currently dealing with their own fight, but I hear it's going well. The Norse are at a stalemate with them, holding them back from entering the palace. They got hit hard and lost a lot of civilians. The Scorpion is also a part of the Norse, and bringing him here was an olive branch with our Norse brothers, so I am going to help out over there." "I see. I shall also come with," Athena said, standing up. "Shall we?" she asked, which got Ares to nod. The two of them walked off together, leaving Artemis alone on her bench. She stood up and approached the double doors to the infirmary, staring at it. She clenched her fists and opened the doors, walking inside. Issei was unconscious. The ones looking after him were no longer there, off to do whatever it is they do. Issei was sleeping on the bed. She could see every scar he had. Fresh and old. There was a huge one on his chest, where he got stabbed in the heart. She frowned at this and placed her hand on his chest, gently stroking it. No one has ever put their life on the line for me like that. Artemis said softly, rubbing his chest, making sure not to disturb the stitching. It was then Asclepius came out of his office, approaching the table from the other side. We didn't want to let the devils know that one of their own was injured on our watch, so no phoenix tears were used, but he's going to be just fine and will probably awaken in a couple hours, so you can take him off our hands. Thank you for healing him. Don't. From what I understand, he was vital in saving your life among many others. Ares and Athena would have been overrun if it wasn't for him, so I wanted to help him out, though there isn't anything I can do about the scarring. Would have to find Iaso for that. No need, I think he likes his scars, and I have to say I find them nice. It shows that he isn't afraid to fight for what he believes in, and it's attractive. The man finished. Many women find scars a sign of a man. Glad to see that you have found someone for you. Take him out whenever he wakes up. He said, leaving Artemis behind. Artemis nodded and just stood there, stroking his chest with a smile on her face. About 2 hours later, Issei let out a groan and opened his eyes slowly, putting a hand over his eyes at the bright torch hanging from the ceiling. He looked to his right towards the office of the healers before looking to his right. He jumped a bit at the figure standing next to him. Hey, Artemis said. You okay? I feel like the dead. Issei said, groaning as he slowly began to sit up, only for Artemis to grab him and help him up. His body was stiff and very heavy for him. You did die, we just brought you back. Oh great. So I died and you bring me back to live in hell. He said with a grin. Maybe I wanted to die. He teased. Artemis smiled. Well, guess you're stuck living with me then. Lucky you. She teased right back. Issei chuckled a bit before groaning in pain. Artemis helped the man out of the bed and together, they walked to their room. Upon entering the bedroom, Artemis gently placed Issei onto the large king-size bed, which he let out a sigh of relief to be on the soft mattress. It was like sleeping on a cloud, and more than likely, there really was a cloud stuffed into the silk mattress. Issei smiled and swung his legs with a grunt before he laid back down. He ended up just crashing back from the weight, letting out a hiss of pain. Buck, that hurt. He said. You need to relax and let me help you. You can't be moving around for a while. Oh joy, the woman who hates me is going to help me. That's going to end well. He said with a small laugh, putting an arm over his eyes as exhaustion washed over him. His body relaxed into the bed, going limp as he ended up passing out rather quickly. Just before his brain shut down, he swore he could feel something on his lips, like another pair of lips. Artemis pulled away from his lips before letting out a small smile. I don't hate you, I love you, isseihyoudou. The goddess left his chambers before collapsing against the door, looking down at her lap. I guess I do love him. No man has ever done that for me, not even my own hunters have done that for me. No one has sacrificed their life in order to keep me safe. I can't even find any part of my heart that hates him anymore. I really love him. She thought to herself as she laid her head back against the door, closing her eyes. I haven't smiled like that in a long time, she thought before drifting to sleep in the hallway. It was well into the early morning when Artemis woke up from her sleep. She looked out the window in the hallway and noticed that the stars were still out and the sun wasn't even creeping. She yawned and stretched her body, popping her joints before standing up and looking around. The palace was fully repaired by now, and if it wasn't for the injured man in the room behind her, it was like the battle never took place. She put her arms against the windowsill and placed her chin on her arms as she looked out the window at the beautiful place called Olympus. She sighed and had a goofy smile on her face as her mind began to imagine things. She was shaken awake from her daydreams by one of her hunters. The woman smiled at the goddess. Artemis. Is he okay? The woman asked the huntress. Yeah, he's gonna make it. Just needs help for the next week or two to do things. His body has to recover, but his devil healing should help out with that. Artemis said with a nod. I wanted to thank him for saving my life. I plan on doing that myself, so I'll pass along the message. She said, and the hunter nodded. Thank you. Have a good day, Artemis. She said, bowing her head and walking off. Artemis sighed and stood up, opening the door to the bedroom quietly before stepping inside silently. As soon as she approached the bed, she was surprised. Issei was awake. How long were you up for? The past hour or so. Can't move, so I'm just laying here all useless. He said with a frown. I hate feeling useless. That's what happens when you threw your life away to protect someone who hated you. Artemis said with a frown. I would do it all over again if I could. I know you would, which is why, Artemis said as she sat down on the bed before turning and sitting on it cross-legged. She looked at her lap. Thank you, she said softly. Don't need to thank me. Just knowing you are alive and safe is all that matters to me. He said with a small smile, in which Artemis looked up at him and moved to lay down with him, wrapping her legs around his waist before she gingerly kissed his lips, which got the devil boy to widen his eyes, shocked and surprised. He, however, didn't miss a beat and gently kissed her back, pushing into her lips while his hands held the small of her back. She purred inwardly at the touch to her back, feeling the heat from his hands and how good it felt to have his strong hands around her back. When she pulled away, she placed her face into his bare chest, holding his sides tightly. "Don't do it again, don't die for me again," she said quietly. "I can't promise that," Issei said, gently stroking her spine. Artemis tightened her grip. "I'm sorry that I was so mean to you," she spoke after about 10 seconds of silence. "It's fine. I've dealt with a lot in my life so it's not hard for me to handle," he said as he continued to stroke her spine. "It doesn't mean I wasn't wrong. I love you, Issei," she said, looking up at him. "Isn't it too early for that?" he asked curiously. No, it's not. After seeing what you would go through for me, I don't want you to leave me. I want to stay by your side and I like to kiss you and hug you and I want to do so much more. I love you, Issei," the goddess said. I can't return those feelings right now, though I just don't know what love is," he admitted. "That is fine cause you still returned my feelings in your kiss. We don't need to put a name on what it is as long as we have each other." Issei nodded and Artemis moved forward once again, capturing the lips of her boyfriend with her own. She would snuggle up to him as she kissed him, their lips melting together like they were one. Issei responded with his own kiss, both of them enjoying the moment together, but it wouldn't last long, as Issei would end up passing out in the arms of Artemis, who wouldn't complain. She really did enjoy just staring at Issei while he slept. Chapter 28. Issei woke up the next morning still in bed. He attempted to move, only for two things to happen. He couldn't move his body due to a weight on top of him. On top of that, even attempting to move as he did suddenly brought on a lot of pain. He would let out a small growl from the pain, which awoke the other occupant of the bed, the silver-haired goddess, Artemis. Typical beast, always growling. She teased sleepily, not having moved from her spot next to him. She was curled up right into his left side, having forced Issei to sleep on his back in order for him to heal properly. It was the safest way for him to sleep. With her curled up to his left side, her head was on his chest, using him as a pillow. She would start rubbing his chest in circles, letting out a yawn. Issei would move his hands to rest on her lower back. "Yet here you are cuddled up to the beast. Sounds like you just want the beast to ravage you. I am the goddess of the hunt after all. I have to make sure you behave yourself, beast." She grinned. "I'm still going to go with the desire to be ravaged." Typical beast only thinking with his dick. "Oh well, if that's the case, guess I better act like it and start pounding you now. Like you could with your body the way it is." "Oh low blow." Issei shot back. "Never fight a deity," Artemis said, patting his chest before moving her head and placing her chin on top of his chest to look at him. "So, what shall we do today?" "Well, I think we need to get me some pain medication or something. I need to get back to the underworld." Artemis frowned. "I don't think that's going to be possible for a while." "Wait, why not?" "Issei, you were dead on that table for a while." "What do you mean?" "You were dead on the operating table for 10 minutes, Issei. We barely brought you back from the dead. Your heart was pierced out of your chest, Issei, your entire nervous system is shot, they suspect you wouldn't even know how to walk, let alone fight. Complete reset of your body." "I see. But we won't know until we try, right?" "Issei, it was the god of healing, it's a sure thing supernatural, remember?" "But..." Issei's expression went dark really quickly. "Hey, we will get you back on that battlefield, you'll just have to reboot your system." She chuckled. "We can call Ares back or something. Get you some training." "No, I don't want any help, my mind, I remember all my training, we'll just have to do it again." "Are you sure?" "Ares is the god of war. I don't like relying on others for help. I've always been self-reliant." "Yes, and it's going to get you killed. Then it's just me who dies, not you or anyone else by my side." Artemis would smile at his words, knowing him to mean it as he was an honest man. She gave his lips a chaste kiss and nodded. "Alright, fine, beast. Have it your way, however, you will be trained by me. I will be there with you and I will help you, you don't have a choice in that matter." "Why wouldn't I have a choice?" "Because I said so," she said with finality. "Now, what shall we do first?" she asked. As soon as she said that, Issei's stomach would comically rumble. "Ah, the beast needs to feast. You enjoying my nickname, huh?" "Hey, it just fits. Shall I call you honey or sweetie?" "Oh please do," Issei said sarcastically. "It's you." "That's what I thought," she said, poking his chest. "Alright, stay here. I shall go and get you food." "No, let us get it together. Help me up." "You need to rest." "No. I need to get out of bed and eat. I can't just stay here. The faster I get up out of bed, the faster I heal." "That's not how it works." "I don't care. I don't want to feel useless," Issei said with a frown. "Is that what this is about? Your usefulness? You think that because your entire life you were a warrior that it's what you are only for?" Artemis asked, turning to face him. "That's absurd. You just need to find a hobby. Even I do many things. I have no other skills," Issei said with a frown. All I know is how to fight. So you had no other hobbies? Nothing you enjoyed? I guess I liked animals. All my life, I've only known war and death. I think I'm going to take you to the library. Reading? He asked. No. Riding horses. She said sarcastically. Funny, I don't know if I would like that. You never know unless you try. Now, let's get you out of bed, you big whining beast. The goddess said, grunting as she would gently help Issei up with his left arm over her shoulder. He would lean on her as he was slowly moving out of bed, growling in pain as his body ached and cried for relief. Upon their exit from her chambers, which she had brought Issei to the night before since her chambers were so much better, they came upon the god Asclepius who had exited his chambers, which were connected to the hospital room. He had on a pair of bifocals and was reading a small book when he heard the heavy footsteps. Up and about already? Is that wise Lady Artemis? The gentleman asked. Asclepius was a god that had an older appearance about him. In his 40s or 50s. He had white hair that just framed his face and went down to his ears. He had a bushy goatee and a gentle mustache. He looked wise. The beast insisted on being up already. The beast? Oh, the scorpion or Issei. Pardon, never heard him called that before. How interesting. Well, do you require anything, Issei? Anything to lessen the pain? Ah yes, I should have provided some painkillers. Wait right here and I'll be back in a few minutes. The healer said, disappearing into his chambers. He's quite nice. Issei said. Docile, not hyper. One of the few men I can stand. He's very kind and not high-strung like most of the deities. Not just deities, two of our leaders are very high-strung in the underworld. Issei commented. Artemis nodded and Asclepius exited his chambers, holding out a cup of tea as well as a bag. The bag contains the leaves to make the tea. It's not very tasty, but I'm sure you can add something to it to make it bearable. Should help your body heal a bit faster and lessen the pain. Not much I can do about the pain completely, but it should help a bit. He stated. You two stay safe, Zeus has put Olympus on high alert due to the recent attacks, which thank you Scorpion for your assistance. I fear without your aid, a lot of us would not be here. Issei nodded as the healer walked off with his book, reading once again. Artemis and Issei moved off together again as they headed to a restaurant on Olympus. It wasn't used much by the deities due to them always getting food delivered, but Olympus was home to many other people who were not gods or goddesses. It was a bustling city, filled with Greek warriors, diplomats from other pantheons, workers, regular people really. As such, there were restaurants and other places found in the human world. This one was a very popular place for dates. It was a Thai food joint, well known for their agreeable prices, great staff and good food. The only downside was how busy it was hard to get a seat. Luckily, being a goddess had its perks. Table for two? Artemis asked, which got the waitress to turn from her magical tablet. Oh Lady Artemis, this is a surprise, we're quite booked, but I'm sure I can find you a seat. The waitress said, looking through her table before spotting a free table. The table was about to be booked online, but the waitress quickly booked it and reserved it. Right this way. She said. As Artemis and Issei slowly traversed the restaurant, she was still helping Issei walk, though he was moving a bit faster, as his legs were remembering how to work properly, though when she let go of him, he fell only to be caught by the huntress, so she just stayed with him. Here you are. The waitress said. Anything I can start you off with? Wine please. White. Artemis said before looking at Issei. Offer him water, but can you also bring something sweet to mix into his tea? He has to take his pain medication. Oh, that is the boy who was brought here by Zeus, right? He's quite popular. And quite the hunk. The waitress said, winking at Issei only for Artemis to let out a small growl and a sharp glare to the waitress. The waitress gulped. Right away she stammered, moving off. Issei laughed a bit, looking at Artemis. Jealous. Possessive. Shut up, Artemis grumbled. No, because you are aware that I have other women, right? Issei asked. Artemis eyed. She knew that, though she wasn't exactly thrilled. Yes. Then you know you can't just do that to them either. I won't stand for it. Well, if I could stand. He snickered. Well, actually you can, but you can't stop them from spending time with me. Artemis nodded. I know. She said quietly. You don't have to do this. We could always remain friends. The thought had crossed my mind, but I like you a lot. You are the first man I've felt this for since Orion. I've heard you speak of him before. Who is Orion? He asked, looking at his date. He was a very special man, the first man I've ever loved and desired. He and I were destined to be. He was proud of hunting with me, and he said something stupid. He said he would hunt all the wild animals, and Gaia, the goddess of the earth, killed him by sending a scorpion at him. I'm sorry. Issei said, reaching over and gently squeezing Artemis's hand. I know what it's like to lose people. I've lost many people I was close to, it's probably why I don't really know what love is, as I just closed myself off. I dunno, he mumbled, sighing and shaking his head. Sorry, this was about you. So, was Orion a really good man? He was kind, sweet, gentle. He cared for me and did all he could for me. After what happened to Orion, I ended up really depressed for centuries, and after it happened, many men had come for me seeing as I was no longer with Orion. Well, you know what happened. They attempted to gape you, yet it never happened, right? No. I would never allow it. I would usually kill them for it. And this got you this fear of men? All the gape. Yes, I told you this already. I know, just having a conversation about it. He smiled a bit. So why me? You remind me of Orion so much, yet you are so different. You are kind, sweet, caring, loving, and you would do anything for me, even risk your life. Unlike him, you're sarcastic, kind of an ass, and you really know how to keep me on my toes. You surprise me every day. So being an ass is a good thing. Sometimes. Depends on what kind of ass, I suppose. I'm not sure. I just know I really like you. She said with a small smile. I haven't felt this way since Orion, and it feels liberating. I'm glad that I tried to kill you in the arena with Ares. Oh, that was fun. Didn't expect Odin and Thor to come to me though. They apparently have high hopes for me and are using me as their champion. Looks like. From what rumors are stated, Zeus is also going to have you as the Greeks' champion. Why me? He sighed. Probably because you're just you. It's hard to explain, but you're a warrior who holds no judgment of any other pantheon. You don't hate anyone except those who do wrong, and even then, I would think you wouldn't immediately jump to kill someone unless they were really bad. I wouldn't know. I haven't come across someone that I haven't wanted to kill. I was actually ready to kill Ares in the arena cause he pissed me off. I wanted to spank you. He grinned at her. Artemis raised a brow. Typical beast. You want to spank my little ass, do you? Issei shrugged. Hey, I just found out that I really enjoy being the dominant one. We'll see how that works out for you, beast. She teased. It was then the waitress appeared with their drinks and the mango slices in a bowl. You guys know what you would like to eat. I haven't eaten Thai food before. Issei said. She can order for me. He stated, gesturing his head over to Artemis. Just make it 4 orders of volcano shrimp and just put it all on one platter. Artemis said. Oh, and some cheesecake for me. Cherry please. She stated. The waitress nodded and left without another word. Volcano shrimp? Issei asked, raising a brow as he began to grind the mangoes into a pulpy juice before pouring it into his tea. Yay, it's shrimp that is breaded, and there is this spicy dipping sauce. It's actually a very sweet spicy sauce and I can't explain it, but I love it. Not a fan of Greek food if I'm being honest. She chuckled. I like all foods, it's better than what I was fed. He laughed a bit. Ever had water with bits of bark in it? It was our soup. Bark? Hey, it was a source of nutrition, I learned. Gave us plenty of energy though it tastes horrible. So yes, eating any other food is great. I found I have a very big love for meat. He grinned. Though that's probably because meat was a rarity when I was a gladiator. Meat was saved for special occasions, and even then, it was usually terribly cooked or going bad. He said with a frown before sighing. Sorry. I don't mean to pry into your life. The huntress said. No, it's fine. Issei said, drinking his mango tea down. Just a life I do not ever want to return to. Ever. He said. Slavery is something I can never abide by, which is why I am not exactly a normal king in the underworld. I am very lax and generally let my pieces do what they want. That devil society isn't very happy about that. Artemis commented, drinking her wine. Like I give a damn. They wouldn't dare try and stop me. I won't hold back against people who try to keep others down. I do not like the elite. He said with a frown. You would not like most deities. Oh, probably not, but so far the Greeks are nice. Sure, you guys live kinda lavishly, but you guys seem to treat your people very well. Olympus seems to be lavish for even the normal folk. Well, we are well known for our kindness, kind of. Our history is pretty colorful. So I have been told, but that's fine. As long as you guys don't try to do that crap again. He grinned. Now that you have your champion, you gotta be a role model. He teased. Oh yes, we need to be a role model for the innocent beast in front of me. She retorted. She grinned at him only to frown as she was approached by someone she's never seen before. It was a man, about 4 inches taller than Issei was and well built. Well, hello beautiful. He said, grinning bright. I heard you have quite the attitude on you for such a small woman. I like them feisty. So how about you and I ditch this joint and have some fun? The man asked. Issei would laugh a bit only for the man to turn to Issei. Something fun, boy? He asked. Are you new to Olympus? Like. Really? Yay. I just got here. Lived in Egypt. Egyptian pantheon then? Yes. Sent here to get some work done from a blacksmith here on Olympus. What of it, boy? Oh, nothing. Just amuses me. You're aware that she kills men, right? Oh, that's just a fairy tale. I mean, she's here with you, isn't she, boy? The man was quite older than him, at least 20 years if not more. Issei grinned. Is that so? Well, by all means go ahead. He said. I'm not interested in pigs. Go away. Artemis said. Ouch. Strike one there, sport. Issei stated. Shut your bucking mouth, kid, or I will shut it for you. Oh my, is that how you woe women? Insult and threaten the people around her. TSK, please tell me that this doesn't work on the women in Egypt, cause I can't see any woman wanting you. Okay, you little buck. You asked for it. The man reared his right arm back and took a swing at Issei. Artemis was about to get up, but it seems Issei still had some reflexes in him, even after being injured. Issei put his right hand up and grabbed onto the fist by the man. He opened the fist up by grabbed the pinky and pulling on it, before grabbing onto the man's hand itself and twisting it while pressing on the pressure point. Issei would then use his right leg and stomp on the man's left knee and send him to his knees. Ow ow ow, what the hell, who are you? The man asked, now being put onto the floor by the pressure on his hand. I'm Artemis's boyfriend, you bucking prick. You're lucky that I didn't let Artemis kill you, but I would rather my date today with her ruined because of some horny individual. He said, throwing his hand away. Get up and get out of here before I let her kill you. The man nodded, stood up and started limping away, glaring at Issei. Issei turned to him and raised a brow at the glare, which got the man to limp away even faster. You know, I could have handled that, right? Perhaps, but like I said to him. I don't want this date ruined by bloodshed. A date? You think this is a date? Why can't it be? He asked, tilting his head. Artemis was taken aback. She didn't think about that. Well, I am having fun on this date, so I guess I can't complain. Wonderful. Issei said. The meal arrived and both of them would start eating. Artemis would move her chair to be right next to Issei, laying her head against his right shoulder. It seemed the huntress was a clingy and touchy type of person. Issei would wrap his right arm around her shoulder and eat with his left hand, dipping the shrimp in the sauce, eating with his new girlfriend. Everything was alright. They would sit and talk and eat, or just enjoy the silence. It was a good date. Chapter 29. A week passed and Issei was still in pain, though he was up and about without help from Artemis. He could walk on his own, though Artemis stuck with him and refused to let the teenager out of her sight. Technically, he wasn't a teenager due to being stuck in that sarcophagus the way he was, but body-wise he was still a teenager. His body was still in pain, and he was still hopped up on pain pills, but it did not slow him down. He wouldn't show he was in pain, but Artemis knew, but also because he asked for the pain pills. A week passed since the date and Issei was no longer bedridden. He was currently in a training room owned by Ares and his people, currently training. His body was still strong, but his motor control was completely gone. He had to retrain from scrap and train he did. He worked out his hand-to-hand combat first due to his decision on his new weapon choices. A person could be disarmed of their weapon, but the one weapon that cannot be removed is your fists, and there are weapons that can be used with your fists. So right now, he was using a boxing heavy bag filled with sand and was just punching at it rapidly. The bag was shaped like a male warrior, so Issei was punching the weak spots on the body. Groin, solar plexus, liver, floating ribs, throat, face. He would dance around the bag as well, striking the sides as well as the back of the bag. The bag was magically enhanced to show where his fists hit and how hard it hit based on the numbers on the bag that appeared in magic lettering. He struck with his fists, elbows, knees, and even headbutted the bag. He grappled with it to practice delivering knee strikes and elbows. He had been at this for 2 hours straight, not even taking a break for breath or water. Artemis was laying on the couch, laying on her side and watching Issei with interest. She had never seen anyone train as hard as him at anything. Even Ares hardly ever trained. Artemis trained once a week with her bow, but she was so confident in her ability that sometimes she didn't train at all that week. So seeing someone take training so seriously was a new thing, and if she was truthful to herself, it was extremely attractive. Issei had a goal in mind, and he set out to conquer that goal. He wanted to protect his friends, his family and his loved ones, and he would stop at nothing to do so. That was a big reason why Artemis fell for the boy. I really love the guy. I feel more for him than I did Orion. Issei is, I don't know, but I love him. As Artemis watched a shirtless Issei beat down the human-shaped sandbag, she began to entertain not so clean thoughts. She couldn't help but think what it would be like to be grappled by Issei almost as roughly as he was with the bag. Of course, less clothing would be involved. Oh, I haven't entertained these thoughts either since I really do love him. I hope Issei really wants me around him. She begged in her thoughts. With a powerful kick with his shin, Artemis was awoken from her thoughts by the magic bag exploding into particles, having taken enough damage to disintegrate essentially. Issei took several deep breaths before taking a water bottle and just downing it in one session, inhaling it really. Artemis smiled. You done for a while? Yay. Going to take a break. My body is getting sore and I'm hurting a bit more again. I'll do some basic exercises tonight and train tomorrow. Alright, so what shall we do now? Going to call my friends. I had promised them I'd call every night and I haven't even called them once. You kinda got screwed the night you came in. Can't be blamed but understood. I shall give you some privacy. The huntress said, getting up and leaving the training room. Issei smiled at the goddess who left and quickly set up a large magic circle and sent the call to Rias due to her being the second in command of his peerage. It took only 5 seconds and Rias appeared. Issei, it's so good to see you, are you okay? I heard that you were in Greece and it got attacked. Yay. I was taken to Olympus. Apparently Zeus wanted me for some things. Oh? Like what? Well, I got a new girlfriend. It's a goddess. Of course you did. Rias said with a sigh. You're always getting girls. It's not like I'm actively trying to. Issei said with a grunt. They are falling out of the sky like raindrops. Pretty much. So are you okay? No, I am not doing okay. I'm better than I was, but Olympus was attacked by the Chaos Brigade. So were we. We didn't take too much damage, but we got injured as well. Well, Kaneko did. She's fine though. What's wrong, Issei? I died on the operating table for 10 minutes. The gods brought me back but I lost any ability to fight. All my skills are gone, he frowned. I'm useless again. Issei, you're not useless. You need to stop, I hope you feel better. Alright, well let me give the call to Akeno. I think you should talk to the peerage. Sure. Put her on. Issei said with a genuine smile. For the next hour, Issei spent time talking to each member of his peerage, including Kaneko. After that, he walked out of the training room and decided to head to Artemis's room, thinking she might be there. He was getting hungry so he would ask her to walk with him to get some food. Upon entering, he came upon a sight he did not expect. A naked Artemis three-knuckled deep into herself. She had forgot to lock the door. She was startled at the door opening and yelped, immediately covering herself with a blanket and removing her fingers from her lower body. Her face was flushed red as she stared at Issei, who had a very amused look on his face. Shall I leave? He asked in good humor, entering the room further and taking a seat on the couch in the room. Why, you could have knocked, she stammered, flustered. She was so hot and bothered by what she saw in the training room she left to her room to relieve herself of her stress. It took her about half an hour to actually get the courage to do something she thought she'd never do. Masturbate. I didn't think I had to knock to enter the room I stay in. Artemis huffed and looked away. You're such a pain. She said, taking a deep breath and removing the blanket from her body. She got dressed in her garb of clothing which consisted of basically a catsuit. It was a light green leather catsuit. She had on a brown belt as well as 2 shin guards that were overlapped like scales. Me? Never. He laughed a bit. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt such a thing. If you wish, I can always assist you in such activities. I'm not ready for it yet, she admitted in a low voice. Alright. Issei said with a smile. Whenever you are wanting me to. You aren't going to push me to do it. Why would I? What's the point of doing something with another person if they aren't into it? Seems boring. Issei said. Plus it's wrong. He followed up with. Artemis quickly hugged Issei around his abdomen, laying her head against his chest. I am so happy to have found you. She muttered in his chest. Issei would smile and gently rub the back of her head. Likewise, Artemis. Issei said before his tummy rumbled, which got both of them to laugh. Another date. Anytime you want. He said. It was 2 months after Issei arrived on Olympus that he was being called by Surziches. The Lucifer smiled at Issei from the hologram. How are you doing? Heard you were in bad shape for a long while. I'm much better. The pain is gone, though I get so tired easily. I won't be fully recovered for another couple months, but I am fine. I can even fight again. That's good news because you have a game. I could not put it off any longer and I am sorry. I did what I could to stall the game and it worked for a while, but I can't anymore. The High Devils want this game. Issei sighed. I hate your society. He said with a grin. But I understand their motives as well. It's good that they allowed this much time to pass. How much time do we have? A week from now. I also thought you could come back tonight as we have a party tonight with all the younger devils participating in the large rating game event. As well as the higher-ups getting to talk and discuss things. That sounds good. I will make preparations to appear in my house within the next 3 hours. Wonderful. Glad to have you back on your feet, Issei. Surziches said before disconnecting the call. From behind, Artemis frowned. You have to go? Artemis asked. Yes. I can't stay here forever. My place is with the underworld. Why don't you come with me? My place is here though I can always visit often. Artemis said, smiling. He's so sweet. Good. I will just be gathering my things and make a very important call before I head out. Issei said, walking up to Artemis and capturing her lips, his right arm around her waist, holding her as he deeply kissed the woman. The goddess was surprised at how forward Issei was, not expecting the kiss, but she didn't complain. Oh no, she enjoyed it and kissed him back just as deep. He'd rub her waist and lower back and she'd just curl her hands in his shirt as she truly enjoyed the kiss from her boyfriend. After a minute, Issei pulled away and smiled. Alright, gotta make that call and get going. I will miss you, Artemis. Visit soon. I will. She said, watching as Issei walked out of the room and went somewhere where he could make the call privately. He entered the training room and put a magic circle under his feet, which formed a bubble around him. He then formed a magic circle over his ear, though it was actually 3 magic circles. The plan still in place? Issei asked. Yes. The voice over the call stated. It was distorted. The plan is ready to go. I hope this works as my life is on the line. Mine is as well, but this is our best chance. Agreed. The voice said before ending the call. Issei grinned and removed the magic circles before he teleported away. Issei arrived shortly in his bedroom, finding that it was changed from the last time he appeared. The bed was now much bigger in all directions, and his room seemed larger overall. Magic was a wonderful thing, it seems. Issei grinned and left his room, sneaking down the stairs with silent footsteps. He heard the TV on, and he figured that at least someone was in the living room. Upon arriving, he noticed that everyone was gathered in the living room, watching a movie. Issei walked in and leaned against the wall, looking at the movie. He was still unnoticed. What you watching? Issei asked, startling the girls and Kiba, who paused the movie and all ran at him, except Kiba and Kaneko, who just stood up and waited to greet their comrade. The girls all charged at him, vying for a hug from their boyfriend. With her speed as a knight, Zenobia was the first to reach Issei and quickly hugged the man. Issei laughed at the scene of him being bum-rushed, but he hugged Zenobia tightly before hugging the rest of them. I am going to guess you missed me. You asshole. Making us all worry. Akeno said, smiling at the king. Not my fault. Blame Cow's brigade. More fun to blame you. Irina said, laying her head on Issei's chest. Issei smiled. Irina was opening up to him too. I guess that would be more fun. So, what's the plan for the week, rias? We got the party for tonight and then we prepare for the raiding game in a week. Actually, we should be getting ready to leave now, was just distracted by the movie. Ah well, let's get going. I think I look nice enough for a party. You could be shirtless and still look good for it. You're different after all. I do like being shirtless. Issei said, grinning. But for the sake of modesty and not embarrassing you, I shall wear a shirt. Alright rias, let's get going whenever you guys are ready. Rias smiled and the girls went off to prepare for the party. Kiba was already spiffy looking, so he was good, and Issei didn't really care about fancy party clothing, so he was fine in his t-shirt and cargo shorts. Half an hour later, they were in the underworld, at the party. Issei was currently at the dinner table as that was his first stop. Issei also had an appetite much bigger than before he got hurt. His body had some catching up to do. He was wolfing down sandwiches with meat, hot dogs and biscuits, small steak bites, and other protein foods. His shirt was pulled and with a face stuffed with food, messily so, he turned and faced none other than Ravel Phoenix. Of Raphael. Issei said, with his mouth full before swallowing. What can I do for you? And you act better in high society? Ravel asked, wiggling his nose. I could, but if I'm acting then not me. If not me, then well I don't want to be anyone but myself. Issei said with a shrug. This is why ugh. Well whatever. I wanted to give you this. As a token of no ill will between the Phoenix family and the Gremory group. It's the Hyoudou group now, but thank you. I had no ill will at all for you guys. Well, I did for your brother. Speaking of, how is he doing? Oh, he's absolutely terrified of you. Hasn't been the same since he lost. Seeing you single-handedly destroy his peerage really knocked him down a few pegs. Serves him right for being so arrogant and trying to do something when it was obviously wrong. Well, that's interesting. Not good though. Don't need him terrified of me. Just need him to know right from wrong. Issei shrugged. Well, maybe someday. He chuckled. Quite harsh for someone serving under his peerage and for his sister. When he lost, I got transferred into my mother's peerage. Since she doesn't do anything, I am essentially a free bishop and I can do anything. Oh, so you can join any other peerage you want just by trading an empty piece for you? Yes. I can ask and there is no bargaining. Just my choice. Surprised you knew about free bishops for someone of your stature. Well, aren't you a little shit to me? You know if you can acting like that, I'll have to punish you. He grinned. This got Ravel to blush and look away. Hey anyways, I wanted to give you this as a token of friendship. Ravel said, holding out what looked like an eyeglass case. Issei took it and opened it. I'm going to guess Phoenix tears. Issei said. Well that's awfully kind of you, thank you. Why yes. So Lord Issei, how about the next time we meet, I give you a mouthful of my teas. What? He snickered. My Ravel, such a dirty mind. Issei teased. He was almost twice her size so he felt good teasing her. All she could do really was kick his shins. Shut up, what I meant to say was, I've been learning how to bake cakes and they go great with tea, so how about you try some later? Sure. That would be wonderful. Issei said before he turned his head as something caught his attention. Though it would have to wait. Issei said, heading off towards the elevator. As he reached the elevator, Rias also entered it, staring at Issei. You spotted her too? Yay. She's been on my radar for a while, plus I have a feeling something's about to happen. Need to be prepared. Issei said. Rias nodded and both of them descended on the elevator. Chapter 30. Issei and Rias exited the elevator and were moving quickly through the forest. They weren't running, despite Ria's urgency to rush to Kaneko. Issei, however, held Ria's hand and held her back. Rushing to her won't fix the problem. She's running to something, not away. I rather not tip away the guests we have. Yes. It's my suspicion that Kaneko is going to meet someone. I saw something in the party while talking to Ravel. A black cat. As soon as Kaneko spotted that black cat, she started acting weird, and then when the cat left, Kaneko left. Black cat? No, it couldn't be. Something you aren't telling me? Yes. Kaneko has a sister. And I am going to assume the sister isn't exactly on good terms with Kaneko. No, it's bad. Kaneko is not her original name. It is Shirin. Shirin had a sister named Kuroka who was a powerful devil in a peerage a while back. Kuroka went power crazy and slaughtered her master before slaughtering the devil pursuit squads we sent after her. Kaneko was sentenced to death for the crimes of Kuroka and it was almost carried out, but my brother saved her life and put her under my household. She's powerful and very dangerous ultimate devil class. She could have given Kakebule a run for her money as well. I see. Then if this Kuroka is the one who has Kaneko so antsy, it's up to me to save her. Issei said. Rias, my power in magic is limited. Cast a barrier around you and I to hide our presence in every manner. Issei stated, moving into the forest and off the path with Rias in tow. Rias was walked fast to keep up with Issei's longer strides, but she kept up and was casting magic spells. They arrived close to where Kaneko is, as they could hear them. I came back for you, Shirin. When I had to pack up and run, I couldn't take you with me. So, it's time for us to go, Naya. Kuroka said, grinning. I am here to take you with me after all, Naya. Issei gave Rias the signal to move forward towards Kaneko, and Issei moved into the forest. He disappeared from sight as Rias approached Rias. That's not going to happen. Rias said. Kaneko is a member of my household and Issei's peerage. Also, unlike you, we cherish our family members. Your household. Like that matters. She and I are sisters first and foremost. I'm going to give her to you just because you deign it. Well, actually you're going to give her to us cause you have no choice. Issei stated, appearing from behind Kuroka's tree that she was in. However, he wasn't alone. Biku was in front of Issei being held in a chokehold with his other hand pressed up against his throat right along the jugular. Biku had his head back to look further up into the sky. Issei's hand that was on his throat was covered in a red gauntlet. This gauntlet was made out of scales. It was his sacred gear. His other hand had a golden gauntlet of similar looks, though wasn't scales. Was a solid gold gauntlet. Both had extremely sharp claws on the fingers, extending 4 inches out. The knuckles had spikes on the tips. The gauntlet on both hands would extend up to above his elbow. Jutting out of the elbow was a spike about 6 inches in length. Who the hell are you, brat? Kuroka demanded, seeing the predicament they were in. This here is the man who almost killed Volley. The scorpion? Kuroka asked, looking a bit scared. The one and the same. So, hear how it's going to go down, Kuroka. First and foremost, you will relinquish your claim to Kaneko for the night. They will be leaving. Second, you will be trading places with Biku. I've placed a magic circle on Biku's back which will kill him if I give the command. Shall we begin? What makes you think we trust you to keep your word? Biku asked, which got the very deadly finger pressed a bit more into his flesh without breaking skin. I don't think you are aware of how badly I want to kill you, Biku, and the rest of your team. In fact, Volley is only alive because of Azazel. You could be dead already. You really don't have a bucking choice in the world when it comes to this deal. Is that clear, Crystal? Biku said. Kuroka, please. He asked his partner. Kuroka was glaring at Issei with hatred, but she jumped down from the tree and walked up to Issei. Issei would remove his arms from Biku and not even push him away, backing off. He would put his arms behind his back and nod. Alright. Good. Now then, I am going to trust you, Kuroka, to uphold this bargain. Issei said, snapping his fingers. Every person watched as the magic circle from Biku's back disappeared into nothing. Kuroka just glared at Issei, who waved Kuroka and Rias to go. When he felt the two leave the area, Issei removed the gauntlets from his hands. Wonderful. Now then, we're going to have a chat, cat. Biku, you can leave. This is something private with Kuroka I want to ask. Both members were completely surprised, seeing at how trusting and vulnerable Issei looked, though he really wasn't. They noticed how his muscles coiled in his legs, ready to react to anything. He was always on guard. Biku would stare at Issei and start to laugh. You really are interesting, isseihyoudou. I really can't bring myself to dislike you. Oh, and Volley respects you and wants to have a rematch someday. As long as he apologizes for working with that bitch and that man, I will agree to that rematch. Issei said, nodding as Biku left. Issei turned to Kuroka and sat down on a large rock. Now then, how about you tell me how it went down with Kaneko? From my standpoint, the story the devils had spun is completely false and fabricated. You are in no way crazy from your power. You look mischievous and probably have done bad things, but you aren't power crazy. You really think I will tell you a bucking thing, you brat? Yes. I do. The cat looked at the teenager incredulously. Why would you think that? Simple. There's no harm in you explaining your side of the story. Plus, if you get on my good side, I can easily have it so Kaneko and you get to meet again on better terms. He said. That and you trust me. I mean, I have held up my end of the bargain and you aren't being held down like Biku was. Kuroka just stared at Issei and narrowed her eyes before sighing. You are an insufferable man. I think you mean a wonderful man. I'm smart in my own way. You really need to curb that arrogant attitude. You shouldn't be talking about arrogant, cat. You thought you could take Kaneko away cause you were stronger, so nice try. Issei said, grinning at the cat. Kuroka just glared at Issei. I hate you, but you have a point. You held up your end of the bargain and I have no reason not to tell you. I still hate you, but the man that I was in the service of, he wasn't a nice person. He wanted his peerage to be powerful and would use any means necessary. Most of them involving torture. I went through that torture and got to be as strong as I am today. I held my tongue and said nothing about it, but the man took notice of my sister. Shirin has the same power and blood as me and could be as strong as me, and he knew it. He went after her, but before he could get her I killed him. I slaughtered him. I could not let Shirin go through that. Why did the devils not know of this? The man was good at keeping his dirty secrets in secret. It was impressive in its own way. She replied. Well, I'm glad he's dead then. For that, I will have a chat with Kaneko and see if I can find a way for you to meet. You have my word on that. However, she is not joining the Cows Brigade. There is no way I'm handing her to the people I'm against. I rather not have her as my enemy. Plus, she's under very good protection. Protection? What protection could be stronger than the Cows Brigade? All my friends, including the Norse and Greek gods. I spent a lot of time in Olympus and Valhalla after all. They are my friends and will help me if I request it. Plus, Kaneko has me. I am not someone you should take lightly after all. Yes, Bali made that mistake of overestimating his sacred gear and underestimating your training. Kuroka admitted. So, what now? Well, I guess you can go on your way home and I shall head back to the party. Sound like a plan. I guess though, tell me something, why are you so nice to me? After what Vali did? Cause the way I see it, you can more than likely leave the Cows Brigade and join me in the future. I could take you right now actually. I could request a favor from Surziches after all, and I really don't give a buck about Devil Society. Kuroka looked surprised and confused. Me, in your peerage? You want me in your peerage? Not sure actually. It was just a thought. I want more allies and you could give me information about the Cows Brigade. I am their enemy after all. Biku was right. You really are an interesting individual. The cat said, shaking her head. Think I will pass on that offer for the time being. I need to consider it as it's not something I should take lightly. The longer you wait, the less of a chance it works out. Issei stated. Plus, you can see Kaneko if you join my peerage. Kuroka laughed and nodded. That's true, Naya. How about you wait right here for an hour and let me get my things. If I return within the hour, I will join you, Naya. Sure. I can wait. Of course, if you appear I will be summoning people here to make this finalized. See you soon, Issei, Naya. She winked, disappearing into a magic circle. Issei huffed a bit and looked up at the stars. My life is complicated. Was all Issei said as he laid down on the rock and relaxed. Issei started up a magic circle in his right hand lazily. Issei? Something the matter? Rias and Kaneko returned and they looked worried. Something major is happening and I would like you to come here. It might be nothing, but I think it might be something. No need to rush, but within the hour would be great. I'll be there within 5 minutes. Surziches said, hanging up. Issei was still lazily lying on the rock, staring up at the night sky. His hands were placed on his belly, gently drumming as he just enjoyed the fresh air. He could hear all of the animals around him, birds, squirrels, wolves and insects. Many more animals about as well. It was peaceful. Issei didn't react when a red magic circle appeared and Surziches stepped out. When the Devil King stepped out, he just looked at Issei with a raised brow. Something you wanted to talk about? Take a seat. No need to stand up. Issei said. Surziches took a seat on a log nearby. It's a nice night out. Yeah, it is. Surziches said. He realized that Issei wasn't going to immediately tell him what was on his mind, so he kept up the small talk. Was it like this back then? Well, not exactly. I don't think these are the right stars as we are in another dimension essentially, but it was very pretty like this. Wasn't a lot of times I could look up at the stars. I had a bed inside a room, locked away and we weren't really allowed out at night. The best times to look at the stars was when we were in the isolation pits. Big pits filled with sewage or garbage. It was deep and we couldn't climb out so they didn't even bar up the top so we could see the stars then. Do you miss anything from back then? Surziches asked after a minute of looking up at the sky. Issei didn't respond for about 20 seconds, but Issei sighed. I don't know. I guess I miss the friends that I've left behind, but it's not like they were really that much of friends. Friends were something we couldn't afford to have as I've had to kill some of them. It's a hard lesson, but friends isn't something I am used to having. Well, you can make friends now. We're in a different time and I hope that everything is going well for you. I am happy to have been brought to this time. I am happy to be a devil. Issei said with a smile. The two of them stayed silent for about 5 minutes before Issei sighed. I brought you here because Kuroka appeared and attempted to take Kaneko away. What happened to Kuroka? Well, I actually invited her to join my peerage. Issei said calmly. Surziches froze up at that and was about to raise his voice, but he calmed down. What led you to this decision? I'm sure you are aware of the fact she is sentenced to death for her crimes. You mean the crimes you guys didn't really investigate? Issei asked, looking over at the Devil King. I heard what you guys charged her with, but it's all bullshit. You guys didn't look into the devil she killed and just assumed she went crazy. If Kuroka didn't kill the man, Kaneko would have been tortured just like Kuroka was. The man was a very strict and evil man, using torture methods to make his peerage strong. That's his choice. We don't have laws against such things. Surziches said. Well, that's going to change. I will be a Mau one day just like you, and I will be changing how the underworld operates. So, I would like to ask if I could get a favor from you and excuse Kuroka from her crimes. Consider it payment for my actions to protect your sister and my future actions to protect her in the underworld. You are trying to blackmail me? If that's what it takes to get what I want, I am. I don't want to be the bad guy, but I want this. I am going to remake this world. The underworld, heaven. The supernatural world will quake when I am done with it. Issei said. I've decided on my goal now. It's to live my life, but to also make the world a better place, and I need people willing to be on my side when I take over essentially. Surziches would stare at Issei before chuckling. I actually had a shiver go up my spine at that. If anyone could achieve this, it's you and I am excited to see this new world you have in mind. Alright, I will do what I can for Kuroka. As it is, if she joins your peerage, you might have some trouble, but nothing will be done legally. You might get threats, but you should be okay. You're a very powerful individual and your status is very powerful as well. Should be fine. You sure this is what you want? I am sure. I am going to put my faith in Kuroka and my instincts. My instincts tell me that bringing Kuroka will make us stronger against future foes and we will have many foes. I have many foes and I will defeat them all. Then I trust you and will do this. Good luck, Issei. Surziches said, disappearing in a magic circle. Issei grinned and went back to looking up at the sky. 20 minutes later, another magic circle appeared in front of Issei's feet and out came Kuroka. She had a backpack on her shoulder and she would stare at the teen on the rock. Taking a nap are we, Naya? Did waiting for me really bore you that much? Just enjoying the night sky. I like the outdoors. So peaceful and the smells are so much better. Got everything? Yep. Ready to see my sister now, Naya. Issei took out his pawn pieces. He had 7 pieces left and stared at them. He then noticed one of the pawns was different. It was fatter and was bulging with an aurora-like aura. Ah, I have a mutation piece. Here. Issei said, tossing the piece into the air and into Kuroka's general direction without getting up. Kuroka quickly caught the piece and laughed. A pawn? Naya, so I'm sacrificial now? Of course not. Pawns are the front lines and you are a frontline kitty. You're not a support. You shall fight alongside your king. Issei said, grinning at the sky. So be it, my king, Naya. She teased, hopping up onto the rock with Issei, sitting next to his prone form. She laid down next to him and just looked up at the night sky, staying silent with her king. Chapter 31. After an hour of relaxing on the rock together, Kuroka and Issei wandered back into the party, which was still kicking. Rias and the others were all together underneath the pavilion tent. The stares that Kuroka and Issei got were immense, as was the hostilities. Oh, this should be amusing, Issei said, his voice laced with humor as the slightly nervous cat followed him over to the group. Upon arriving, Rias looked a bit angry for a moment before letting out an exasperated sigh. Why am I not surprised? Rias sighed. Welcome to the group, Kuroka. You aren't going to cause any more problems, are you? Naya, I never cause problems. I'm a good kitty. She said with a wink. Issei snorted but said nothing. Alright, so what's going on with the party and the rating game? Issei asked, looking at Rias. Rias turned her attention to Issei and smiled. It's a get-together mainly for the higher-ups to mingle, but it's under the pretense for us young devils to mingle. As for the rating game, it's against Sona and there are heavy restrictions placed upon us. Mainly you. You aren't allowed to have your armor or weapons. No sacred gear. Nothing. Well, that's lame. Apparently I'm too much for the devil world. Issei said with a shrug. It's no matter, we'll fight and we'll win. Kuroka is part of my peerage now. I have to do all the work, Naya. Lazy. Kuroka teased. Did I say that? No. Then shush. Issei said, reaching behind him and poking Kuroka on the belly. Kuroka giggled as her tail swished, obviously enjoying the small banter with her king. When is the rating game? In a few days, are you okay? Rias asked. Yay, I'm not back to where I was before, but I'm getting there. Just have to train more. He gave her a small smile. Well, enough standing around like this. Let's party, Issei said, immediately heading for the food. The entire group didn't budge from their tent, obviously having their party there. Issei, on the other hand, was piling meat onto his plate as if it was going to go bad. Hamburgers, ribs, chicken wings, a drumstick, ham. It was just a pile of mixed meats with mashed potatoes on the side. The gladiator took his plate and moved into a corner of the party, which was outside. He sat down against the wall and started to dig into his meal. Issei was devouring a rib when he felt himself being watched and approached. He looked up to see Kaneko slink up and stare down at him as she stood in front of him. "Wutsu, Kaneko?" Issei asked with a mouthful. Kaneko was glaring at the boy, her hazel eyes boring a hole into the man. Issei swallowed. What? Why is she here? Issei blinked before understanding. Because I brought her here. He said with a smirk on his face, being a smartass. This was responded with a kick to his shin by the rook. Ow. He whined, rubbing his shin. Why? Because you kicked me. He stated again only to receive another kick. Ow, will you stop that? He rubbed his shin again. Why is she here? Kuroka asked, raising her voice. Because I thought it was a good idea. He stated. He would put his hands out in front of him before she could kick him again. Kaneko, she's not who you think she is. She okay, she is. She was the reason why you were almost put down. She is a very bad kitty, but she didn't do it for the reason you think. Kuroka was looking out for you when she murdered her old master. The only reason Kuroka is so strong is because that master of hers abused her. He forced her to become strong by abusing her. And the man had turned his sights to you, and Kuroka couldn't allow it. So she killed him. I don't think she thought it through, of course, about what might become of you, but she did what she did for you. Kaneko was silent, so Issei continued. I know you are upset with her and me for doing this without telling you, but I wasn't planning on it. When you and Rias left, Kuroka and I sat down and talked. We talked about everything that happened, and that is when I decided to remove her from the enemy and bring her into my fold. Your harem, she muttered. Well, that's up to her to join such things. As it is, only Roswis is a harem member, but only because she's the only one I slept with. I suppose Akeno is too since we've kissed him. Issei said, humming as he went into thinking about it. Kaneko stared at Issei and looked behind her, looking at the others who were either in their own tent, at the food table or talking with some others like in Ria's case, who was speaking with a tall man with black hair. After a few seconds of looking over her shoulder, she decided to sit next to Issei and cuddle up to his side. Issei stared at Kaneko, confusion in his eyes. Can I help you? No. She said quietly, moving to force him to keep his arm around her shoulders so she could cuddle even closer. Issei hummed at this and shrugged, this time giving Kaneko a one-armed hug and squeeze, eating with his free hand, while the other hand gently rubbed her arm. Kaneko let out a small smile and Issei swore, he could hear purring. Why are you trying to cuddle into me? Issei asked after 2 minutes of silent eating and purring. There was no response. Just a happy Kaneko, and Issei sighed. He hated being out of the loop. I'm scared, Kaneko muttered. Issei swallowed the large piece of ham and put the plate down. Scared? Of me? Kuroka. Becoming like her? Like Kuroka? Oh, because you think she lost control. Yes. Well, I hate to tell you this, but Kuroka never lost control. She might be mischievous and a bad kitty, but she's still in control. This fear you have about losing control is silly. Senjutsu is easy to lose control with. Oh? Well, I don't think you need to worry. You're strong and I'll watch over you. I'll keep you grounded. He smiled at her warmly. Everyone needs someone to look out for them, and if it's not me, then it's Rias. Akeno. Zenobia. Irina. We'll all look out for you, and I think if you let your sister in, she'll also look out for you. Will you really? She asked, looking up at Issei with her warm hazel eyes. Of course. Anytime you need me to be there, I'll be there. If you feel like you're losing yourself, I'll find you and bring you back. If you need anything, I'll be there to give it to you. You're not alone. Issei said with a warm smile. Kaneko's face turned red at his words, and it was then she knew. She liked Issei, loved him. She moved from her spot on the ground and sat in Issei's lap before tenderly pressing her lips to his own, surprising the brunette. A few seconds into the kiss, Issei responded back by pressing his lips deeper into her own, his free hand gently hugging her waist and giving her a squeeze. He didn't respond to it, but he felt something soft and fuzzy slither through his fingers on her waist. The kiss ended with Kaneko pulling back a few seconds later, pressing her red face against his chest, her hands clutching his shirt. Issei planted a kiss in her snow-colored hair, gently rubbing her back before pulling his head away, noticing the change. Kaneko had a pair of white cat ears and a white tail. He raised a brow at this and mentally face-palmed a few seconds later, at finally figuring it out. Of course she has ears and a tail. Kuroka is her sister. Issei scolded himself before smiling. Well, don't you look super cute? He complimented the petite woman, teasing her. Kaneko's face darkened before she gave his right thigh a pinch for it. Issei yelped and chuckled before Kaneko got off of his lap. Thank you Issei, I'm going to go talk to her, she muttered, heading over towards the others, mainly Kuroka, who was sitting on top of the tent, as if trying to keep away from the others, not that Issei could blame her. Issei watched Kaneko leave, and when Kuroka started a conversation with her, he let his eyes wander elsewhere as well as his thoughts. Issei looked down at his foot and went back to eating it, this time eating much faster as if he had somewhere to be. With his food down into his belly, Issei stood up and tossed the plate into the garbage before he left the party in a Norse magic circle, arriving at his house. 5 minutes later, he had a backpack filled with items and gear, and another magic circle was prepped before he once again found himself on Mount Everest, in a secluded location in the cold snowy location. With a smile, looking around, he started to set up a tent, one that was filled with magic. The tent was about the size of a one-person tent in width, but the height allowed him to enter while standing up. As soon as he entered, the magic took effect and the size of his bedroom appeared. There, he would unpack his bag, which was also enhanced with magic, so he pulled out large equipment like ropes, pulleys, big test dummies and other things. The tent had a fire going as well, and with that Issei removed his shirt, staring at a full-height mirror, staring at his scarred body. I'm so weak now. He thought as his right hand trailed along the scar along his chest, right where he was stabbed in the heart. It all came down to a single injury that completely destroyed his ability to fight like he did. Can I ever return to being as good as I was? It was then the image of Julius, the former master, appeared in the mirror behind him, laughing. You think that you can ever return to the greatness you were without me? Issei swung behind him with his fist, seeing nothing, only for the laughter to be heard again. Come on Issei, you were always weak. I was the one who trained you. No, I was the one who put in the effort. Issei roared back, only for the image of the sword through his chest to appear, as well as the six-winged fallen angel to sneer. The laughter from Julius was heard. Sure, you were the one who put in the effort, but if it wasn't for my back-breaking training you'd have never survived. You would have ended up like those scorpions you enjoyed so much, dead beneath someone's boot. He laughed. No, I can be great again, I can return. How do you propose we do that? You don't have the tools anymore, you were forged in combat, and now you have these silly raiding games, you will never be the scorpion again, all that fame, all that fear you generated completely gone, all for a goddess who wanted to feed you to pigs. How far you have fallen, boy. He laughed. Issei had his eyes clenched shut as the voice of Julius filled him with fear and agony. You are nothing but a wimpy little devil with a harem. Julius laughed. No, Issei said, his eyes opening before shoving a fist into the image's gut, making it disappear. I am going to get stronger. Better, he exclaimed, his eyes full of fury and determination. And I won't do it alone, no more going at it alone, he whispered to himself. It was then he activated his magic circle, once again his Norse magic. Issei? Rias answered. Where'd you go? I left. I needed to train Rias. I'm so weak right now and I need help. Please? Issei asked. Speechless. That was what Rias was. Issei had never asked for help before. It didn't take her long to respond. Of course Issei. We're a family, a team. Let me gather the others and we'll go to you. Thank you Rias. I really appreciate it. Issei said, connecting the connection. It was about 5 minutes when the red circle of the Grimoires appeared and everyone from Issei's peerage arrived in a flash of red light. Issei didn't know what to say, so it was Akeno who spoke up. Issei, you don't look so good. She said, which got Issei to flinch. I've always prided myself on being strong, unbeatable. I've had so much pride that I've always went to things alone thinking I could get by forever by myself. I was wrong. I learned what it's like to be weak, unable to protect others. Ever since I died on that table and was brought back, I don't know. I've felt weak. Scared, terrified, really. I don't want to be this way, I want to be strong, fearless. Oh please, I need help. He asked, his voice full of regret and fear. Pain. Of course we'll help you. Kiba spoke up. Zenobia nodded. He's right, we all can help you get strong, the blue-haired knight spoke up. Rias nodded. what they said. Just tell us what you want us to do. We only have a week and it's not nearly enough time to get back to where I was, but I can at least get stronger than I am now. I need to work on my body strength, my stamina physical training. I need to work on my pain tolerance again. I need to work on my fighting abilities. I no longer need to train with a sword, but I need to fight against them. I need to fight hand to hand. Rias nodded. Then Kiba, Zenobia and Irina can help you with fighting against a sword. We all can help you with your physical training. Kaneko can help you with hand-to-hand combat and Kuroka can as well, though I am not sure what to do with your pain tolerance. Just hit me as much as you can. Hold back, but make sure you try to hurt me and cause me pain. It's the best way. Issei said. Rias and the others looked a bit worried, but Issei continued. It is the best way for me to take pain without worry. For me to fight without stopping. What about the magic users? Roswis asked as she spoke up. I don't know. You can fire your magic at me for pain tolerance while I'm fighting the sword users or Kuroka and Kaneko. I only have a week and this is crucial for the moment. I understand, I shall do so. The Valkyrie replied. Well, what first? Rias asked. I go for a run, work on my stamina and then come back for some sword training. Issei offered. Rias nodded. I'll come with you. Zenobia said. Irina looked at Zenobia and quickly nodded. I will as well, I want to get stronger as well. Rias laughed. Maybe we all can go for a run. Kuroka yawned and was lazily laying on a dresser. Nah, I'll see you when you all get back. She drawled out. Rias glared at the cat, but since Issei didn't complain, she didn't say anything and let it go. Issei stretched for a bit, making sure his legs were completely loose and making sure he wasn't tied in the chest or anything. After a good 3-minute stretch from the others, Issei took off in a jog out into the cold. He had magic placed onto his body, forcing him to be mostly human. He wouldn't allow the cold to kill him, but it was biting him nonetheless. The others were just fine, maybe a little chilly, but they could do it more than comfortably. The jog took them up and down the mountain, along narrow passages, past dead bodies, past other hikers. The suggestion magic placed on the group would allow them to remain invisible to everybody on the mountain. It was then Issei yelled out in pain as he was struck in the back by blue magic. Looking over his shoulder, he spotted Roswis flying in the air, magic in her hands. What do you think you are doing? Rias demanded. Issei shook his head. She's doing what she knows I need. No pain, no gain. Issei said, once more jogging again. More and more, Issei cried out in pain from the magic as they continued moving through the mountains. The loop around the mountain took them about an hour, for it was about a mile long, but the snow in places were up to their knees, thighs or waist, or in Kaneko's case, her chest. She would hop onto Issei's shoulders during this, which was a benefit for him since it was extra weight. Roswis made sure to aim true, missing Kaneko and striking Issei. The others looked tired, minus Kaneko and Roswis, which meant the others stopped at the tent. Issei smiled. I'm going to go for another round. He said, panting hard. Issei had placed magic on his waist and legs, which would slow him down and increase the weight and stamina usage. Rias nodded and Issei once more took off, Kaneko following him and Roswis in the air, firing a bolt of magic randomly to keep Issei on his toes. His back was littered with red marks and burn marks. Kaneko was right behind Issei, her breathing slow and steady. Being a more physical fighter, her stamina and strength were greater than the others. Issei, on the other hand, was panting. His chest heaved with every breath, sounding painful as he would no longer cry out, but suck in a deep breath as the magic struck him. As they reached the thick snow, Kaneko hopped onto Issei's shoulders and he immediately trudged into it, only to stumble from his weakened legs. Get up. You can keep going. Kaneko encouraged in her quiet voice. Issei got up at her encouragement and started to run again. Every time he stumbled, she would tell him to get back up and so he would. He had a huge smile mentally, his thoughts racing. This feels much better than being trained back then. I have friends of family people I'd die for. Issei had a surge of energy after his thought about this and quickly got out of the thick snow, once more running towards the tent. This was going to be the last run for the time being, where he would continue with more physical training. Finally arriving at the tent, Issei collapsed to his knees inside, the sweat dripping from his exertion as the ice crystals that had formed on his hair and eyebrows slowly melted away, also dripping to the floor. He heaved loudly, his lungs sucking in the much-needed oxygen from the magically enhanced tent. Akeno smiled and came over with a large glass of water, handing it to the boy. Issei grabbed it with shaky hands, his back bloody and in pain from the magic. Irina gasped and had her mouth hidden behind her hands. "Issei, you're back," she exclaimed. Issei started to down the glass of water, greedily drinking it in one go before once more going back to leaning on his fists to keep himself upright. "Why yay," he breathed out. "I know she did very well. This isn't right," Irina said. "This is cruelty." "Perhaps," Issei said, slowly standing up on his shaking legs. "But sometimes, cruelty gets the job done and I needed it." Don't worry Arena, I'll be okay. Rias was also frowning while looking at his back. That man is a monster, she stated. This is what you think is training? Yes, I do. Well, he was cruel, he was effective, and I'm sorry if this all upsets you, but I can't be weak, I can't. I have so many people relying on me and I can't fail them. Everyone looks at me for strength and to solve their problems, and I can't do it being weak as I am. Issei said. The others finally realized just what kind of a strain the supernatural world had put upon Isseihyoudou. No, they didn't do this to him, they didn't think about the man. They did this to the scorpion. Issei said, trying to find something to say but she couldn't. Kiba understood this though. He also wanted to be strong for the same reasons. To keep everyone safe. Kiba moved forward and drew a wooden sword. I think it's time you begin your training against weapons. He stated, in a fighting stance with both hands on the sword's handle. Issei nodded and with shaking legs, he got into a boxing stance, his fists out in front of him. Don't hold back, if you see an opening, hit me. This is the way I learn. Rias frowned. What exactly is this supposed to do for you now that you don't use a sword? She was really worried for the brunette. Pain tolerance for one, but this will help me learn to fight against weapons. To see them coming, so I can dodge or deflect them. Don't you have Excalibur? Zenobia asked, pointing this out. Issei shook his head. Ever since I died, Excalibur, like a sacred gear, had found a new owner. I don't know where it went. Issei muttered. Does that mean you are weak to light again? Irina asked. Issei nodded. I think so, which is why I wanted you and Zenobia to help me as well. If I can withstand more holy power, I can grow stronger as a devil. But it's not needed right now. Akeno pointed out. We're fighting Sona, who isn't going to use the light, so the training should focus on your physical strength and fighting ability. Issei nodded and moved forward, throwing a punch at Kiba. Issei was slower than before, much slower. Kiba stepped to the side and slashed Issei in the side, right along the liver with his sword. The sword didn't penetrate the skin, but a large red mark and a nasty bruise started to form. Issei didn't cry from the pain and moved back to face Kiba. Watch my shoulder and guess the speed of my sword strike. Kiba commented. This will allow you to deflect a strike from a weapon. Don't try to throw a punch like that, be defensive, unless you can quickly close the distance and get inside the opponent's range. He continued, moving forward with his sword down to show his point. With only a foot separating them, Kiba could not swing his sword and hit Issei, but Issei could punch him. Kiba jumped back and nodded, and Issei once more moved forward, throwing out a jab, and once more Kiba sidestepped, but Issei moved with a sidestep and got into Kiba's range, with his fist against Kiba's stomach. Very good, but let's focus on defending against a weapon. To disarm me, focus on my wrists. Kiba said and slowly brought the sword down, and Issei moved forward and with his left hand, grabbed onto the elbow of right Kiba, and his right was placed on the left wrist of Kiba. Very good. Now disarm me. Kiba stated, and Issei pushed Kiba's elbow towards his body and grabbed onto the sword's hilt with the other hand before lifting up and taking the sword away from Kiba and placing it on his neck. That's how you do it now, let's try it in practice. Kiba said. Kiba moved forward and swung the sword down at Issei, who moved forward to disarm, only to get struck in the forehead. Again. Kiba stated. This combat session went on for 3 hours, with Kiba swapping out for Irina and Zenobia every so often. Each time, they taught Issei a different lesson for disarming an opponent with different sword types. A katana for Irina, a broadsword for Zenobia and a short sword for Kiba. After 3 hours, Issei still wasn't good enough to disarm his opponents on a regular basis, but he was able to at least dodge a single strike before the second one struck him, but the training was over as Kuroka had decided it was her turn to train. Naya, I think you could use some senjutsu training. Senjutsu training? Why? Issei asked. What is senjutsu anyway? Senjutsu is known as the sage arts, or the art of Kai. Rias said. Kuroka nodded. Naya, senjutsu has many abilities that magic does not. Magic does not affect the spirit or the aura or the soul like senjutsu does. Senjutsu can harm or heal someone's life force. It does not have the destructive capability of magic or a sword, but it's an equally dangerous weapon. You can end someone's life with just a single punch, with enough senjutsu power behind it. So it has the ability to affect the body and the soul from within, whereas magic is more of outside force. Issei asked, as he took a seat in front of Kuroka, who was sitting cross-legged in front of him. Kaneko also joined in. Yes. You can use it to harm or to heal. Imagine healing a broken bone in a raiding game. Well, it's not as quick and effective as Phoenix Tears, it's not a rare item to obtain. It also has an added benefit. You can heal your own fatigue and tiredness. Should your life force be harmed through a variety of ways, like with poison, senjutsu can repair and give you back that life force taken from you. Can it strengthen my body for punching? Naya, if you wish to use it in such a barbaric way. She teased. Issei nodded and smiled. Well, sorry for being barbaric. Issei said with a grumble. Kuroka giggled. Isseihyoudou, the barbarian. Akeno teased and Issei pouted. Hiroka continued to giggle. Naya, do you want me to teach you alongside Shirin? It's a much more relaxing training. What does it entail? A lot of meditation. Concentrating on your state of mind and quietly release your kai as well as sense the natural kai in the surroundings. Well, it will slow your progress of learning, it'll be a good chance for your pain tolerance, as well as a training on concentrating during a battle even under pain or duress. Kuroka said, all serious so none of her normal tick. Issei nodded. I will learn if you are willing to teach me. Issei said, bowing his head. Kuroka's tail started to swish happily, overjoyed at the respect the strong scorpion showed her. Naya, this is going to be fun. Now, both of you close your eyes and clear your mind, focus on the energy around you. Kuroka said, closing her own eyes to join them. Issei let out a deep breath as he tried to focus. Roswis was waiting on standby, ready to start hurting Issei, but she wanted to see if he could actually start properly. You're not focusing. Kuroka said without even opening her eyes. Your brain is still racing, you must clear your mind of everything. Issei let out another breath and tried to clear his head, but the image of Issei with the sword through his chest once again entered his mind and his entire face grimaced. Even Kuroka could feel something was off with him. What's going through your mind? Kuroka asked. Nothing, it's nothing. It's not nothing if you are not able to clear your mind. Kuroka said. The others ended up leaving for the night as this would probably take up the rest of the night. Issei opened his eyes and frowned. I'm just scared. I keep seeing my death the sword through my chest and Julius laughing at me, calling me weak and telling him that I was nothing without him. But he's wrong. Roswa said. You're very much something without him. A good man. A kind man. A cute man, Naya. Kuroka said, teasing Issei. The point is Issei, your master is wrong and you should forget about him. Stop worrying so much about this death you went through and look forward to living. Roswas continued. That's stronger, Naya. Focus on getting stronger instead of being weak. It's going to hold you back otherwise, Naya. I know. Death is scary. He said with a frown. I always said I am not afraid to die, but I really am. Good. Kuroka said. Those who aren't afraid to die aren't ever going to be the best. Those who fight to survive and to live are the ones who will be victorious. She said, once again being very serious. So enough with living with the failure you think you had. Focus on getting stronger and protecting everyone that you want to. She said. Issei smiled over at Kuroka. Thanks, you're right. I should and I will. I will focus on getting stronger so I can protect you and everyone else I care for. Kuroka was not expecting that and blushed hard while her eyes were widened. She shook her head. Enough of this, let's get back to the training. She said, as if trying to brush aside her embarrassment. Even though she tried to act all tough and aloof, her tail still swished and there was a large smile on her face. Issei nodded and with that, Kaneko, Kuroka and Issei started to work on their senjutsu. Chapter 32. It was 2 days left before the raiding game. It would be the final day of training for Issei and the others, while the day right before the raiding game would be a rest day. Naya, you're still having trouble clearing your mind properly. But I was able to do it before, Issei groaned out. Kuroka nodded. You just have to keep trying, Naya. You'll get it eventually. Kuroka said, her tail swishing. To Issei's left and Kuroka's right, since Kuroka was in front of him, Kaneko was doing very well. There was a visible wide aura surrounding her as she hazel eyes was slightly glowing. Look at her, Issei, Naya, she's beating you in this. Ashamed scorpion, Naya. Kuroka teased. Issei huffed and Kuroka lightly smacked him with her tails. That face means you aren't focusing. You have to focus. It's hard to focus when I'm being teased and Roswis is helping my pain tolerance. You asked for it. Kaneko scolded. Issei huffed and shook his head, going back to trying to focus. Issei was once again struck by Roswis's magic and he didn't make any face. It was then a small wide aura appeared around Issei's right fist as he continued to focus. It was then a hand was placed on his crotch and his aura disappeared as his concentration was gone. Issei opened his eyes and stared at Kuroka, who had the smile of the cat who ate the canary. Issei narrowed his eyes. Naya, you need to learn to focus and concentrate. I hate you, Issei grumbled. Kuroka giggled as her tails continued to swish. She was a very happy kitty. Roswis on the other hand rolled her eyes. I think we should stop with this. His progress is too slow and we should focus on improving something he can work on well. After the raiding game, he can return to this, but it's important he gets better quickly for the raiding game. Kuroka let out a whine before nodding. Naya, fine. I'll just go back to sleeping. Kuroka said, getting up and hopping up onto one of the dressers in the tent, curling up and closing her eyes. Issei got up and let out a deep breath. Breathing techniques were one of the things he had to learn for this. What do you suggest? Issei asked, turning to Roswis. We can just work on your physical strength again. You had a day of rest so it's a good time. Your pain tolerance is already really good and you are learning well with fighting against weapons. You can improve on both, but your physical strength and speed will be much more useful. Issei nodded. Kaneko sat down on her knees and waited before Issei, who sat down before laying down in front of her. Kaneko pressed her rook strength on his feet. Issei lifted himself up with a grunt, moving his chest to his knees. Roswis took this time to wrap chains around his chest and armpits, securing a vest-like attachment with chains. These chains were attached to a pulley on the ceiling, which was connected to several rocks in a net. Issei grunted and laid down before slowly moving himself up, letting out a strained groan, lifting the rocks off the ground by doing a sit-up. Roswis would start smacking Issei's back with her magic, once more forming the burns, welts and red marks onto his back. Early in the day, his back was completely healed, but now it was back to looking like it was a battlefield. Issei was only wearing a pair of underwear and shorts. His upper body was much more defined than before, as he had surpassed his normal strength that he had even as a gladiator or a devil gladiator. His arms were thick and coiled like pythons, and his thighs were about the same. He wasn't oversized in his muscles, but each muscle was defined and filled with power. He purposely made sure he wouldn't look disgusting like a professional bodybuilder while gaining the strength needed for a strong man. His body glistened in the sweat of exertion, his body mostly human as per the magic spell he placed upon himself. Being human allowed him to gain strength faster and much better than doing it as a devil. Kaneko moved her knees to sit on his feet while her hands were lifted up. When he sat up, he sent 3 quick punches to her palms, and when he laid down he let out a breath. He sucked in a breath, sat up, punched, laid down. Breathed out and repeated. Rinse, repeat. After 100 reps, he collapsed back onto his back, his breathing heavy and labored. No rest. Roswa said. Start working on that pole. She said, pointing up at the metal bar at the top of the tent that was great for pull-ups. Issei got up at the drill sergeant voice of the Valkyrie, immediately jumping up onto the pole, his breathing still heavy and labored. Kaneko lifted up 4 25-pound weights on chains, wrapping them around his waist properly, like a belt. Each weight hung off his legs, increasing the pressure on his arms. Since the weight wasn't on his center of gravity, it was lower, making it much more difficult. Issei let out a loud groan as his arms coiled and slowly lifted his body up. You can do it. Kaneko said. Come on, Issei. Roswis cheered, pumping up the poor boy. Naya, come on, Kuroka said from her dresser. Issei responded with more groans as he lifted himself back up. He also did not let himself go down fast, making sure to slowly let himself go down, increasing the strain. Come on, keep going, Roswis cheered as Issei continued going on. Roswis also started to fire some magic into his back, forcing the poor boy to gasp at the unexpected pain, but he continued lifting himself up and then down. Issei's eyes were clenched shut as his arms continued to pump and coil, lifting himself and lowering himself, over and over. He was at 13. It was then out of nowhere, the weight increased on his body, and this time it was something soft and on his upper body. He opened his eyes and immediately found himself face to face with breasts. He looked up slowly and found himself staring at the mischievous lookout on Kuroka's face. Naya, this should reinvigorate you. Hero sister. Kaneko scolded. Roswis rolled her eyes, but said nothing as Kuroka wrapped her legs around Issei's waist and had her arms around his neck. Naya, keep going, Issei, come on me. She winked and Issei rolled his eyes as he continued to work, with the extra strain on his body. He lifted himself up and let out a deep breath, his breath landing on the large amount of cleavage that Kuroka shows. Kuroka was a beautiful and voluptuous woman. She had long black hair with split bangs. She had hazel gold eyes, much like Kaneko does with cat-like pupils. Her usual wear was a black kimono with yellow obi. There was a set of golden beads around her waist as well as a red interior. Her kimono was open at the shoulders, revealing a very generous portion of her large bust, rivaling that of Rias or Akeno. Every time he lifted up, she would go with him so her tits were perfectly in his face every time. Kuroka had her chin on top of his head, giggling happily at the position she was in. It was not even a minute into this session that Issei felt another weight, this time on his back. It was light, meaning he knew what it was. I won't let her get ahead. Kaneko stated, pressing her entire body to Issei, who groaned at the extra weight, lifting himself up again, this time much slower. He was struggling now. Naya, someone's jealous. Kuroka teased. I haven't even staked a claim on him yet, but it seems like another kitty has. Naya. Evil cat. Kaneko scolded Kuroka. Yufufufu. Kuroka giggled. Roswis rolled her eyes and continued cheering. Come on, Issei, don't let them distract you. You are at 20, come on, keep going, Roswis cheerleaded. It's kind of hard to keep going, it's heavy. Naya, is he calling us fat, dear Shirin? I'm small and light. Kaneko scolded Issei. Issei groaned at his misfortune to be teased by the two of them. Roswis couldn't stop from giggling before she continued cheering. Oh Issei, come on, 5 more, just 5 more, she said, even though it wouldn't just be 5 more. Issei let out a roar and continued lifting himself up and then slowly down, trying not to get distracted by the women. Kuroka smirked seeing him ignoring her antics. Issei, the way your body moves with mine, it's so good, Naya. Up and down you go on me, Naya, she playfully moaned out. Issei's concentration faltered for a moment, his body shuddering at this, before he went back to working on his workout. Oh Issei, go. Kaneko cheered, trying to not tease Issei anymore. Kuroka on the other hand, was having too much fun. Naya, nothing like a big sweaty man to make this kitty purr. Kuroka moaned out, trying to entice Issei. It was working, just not the way Kuroka expected. She had expected him to respond verbally, but the warm and hard object pressing up into her butt crack told her everything she would ever want to know. Naya, such a big man. She purred out into his ear. Naya, think you might have some milk for me, Issei. This kitty is thirsty. She whispered into his ear, which immediately broke his concentration and forced him to drop from the pole, landing on the ground with a thud, the weights forcing him to fall even faster. The women still clung to him before Kaneko hopped off. Kuroka on the other hand, stayed put. Naya, hahaha. I win. She declared. Issei glared at Kuroka and pried her off. He put her back down on her feet and gave her a gently nudge to go back to her dresser. Naya, Issei wants to do this on a dresser. She teased, only for Issei to grunt as he started to down a bottle of water. He turned to Roswis, who was smiling. That was 40, good job Issei, she cheered. 40, there's no way. Roswis nodded. They were distracting you from the pain and strain of the weights. Oh, was that what they were planning the entire time? He then turned to Kuroka and Kaneko. Thank you. Both of you. He smiled warmly, his smile bright. Kaneko nodded. You're welcome. Kuroka giggled. Naya, you're very welcome. Of course it was my plan, I had no other motives to do so, Naya, hahaha. Issei's right eyebrow twitched at that, but he said nothing and turned back to Roswis. What time is it? 5:15 in the afternoon. She replied. You know there's a clock in here, right? Issei didn't respond, a bit sheepish at not remembering that. He shrugged. Well, what should we do now? Issei asked. I say we get some dinner and then do your senjutsu training. It's a relaxing somewhat training. Naya. Senjutsu is very relaxing. None of that barbaric heavy lifting, hard breathing exercise. Kuroka said, trying to defend her fighting style. Issei smiled. No one said it wasn't relaxing, but having to concentrate hard isn't completely relaxing, but I do agree that it's a good idea to focus on that for now. Maybe without the pain training so I can really get a grasp on it. Roswis nodded. Alright. If that's the case, I'll go see about the girls and I getting everyone here something to eat. You can train with the 2 cats. The Valkyrie said before disappearing into her magic circle. Naya, shall we get started then? Kuroka asked, once more sitting cross-legged on a mat with Issei in front of her and Kaneko to Issei's left and Kuroka's right. Issei nodded and closed his eyes, his hands on his knees, holding them as he breathed in deep and let it out in a very slow exhale. Rinse and repeat. He went to clear his mind, trying to focus on the natural Kai that was in his surroundings, as well as the Kai that Kaneko and Kuroka were emitting now. His mind continued to race, however, as images of Kuroka and Kaneko being defeated by Sona's peerage. Images of them beaten, bloody, bones broken, bruises all over. He frowned at the image and tried to shake them out, but the fear of him being weak was just too prevalent in the teenager's turbulent mind. Another image of Kuroka appeared in his mind, this time looking normal. Issei, you need to stop worrying about what could be and focus on fixing that future. Nothing is ever set in stone. She said. Issei didn't say anything, but stared at the images of the injured cats. Kuroka's brow furrowed before she waved her hands and new images appeared. This time, it was of Kaneko and Kuroka hugging it out, a smile on Kaneko's face. They had medals on their necks from being number 1 in the rating games. Issei's face smiled and he looked at the Kuroka who invaded his thoughts. This is a much better one that you can achieve. You're right, I can achieve it, you're right, just I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't be putting all of this on you, Kuroka. Naya, I wouldn't worry about that. I enjoy helping you. Kuroka said, her tail starting to swish again. You just need more confidence in yourself, Naya. She spoke before Issei opened his eyes due to someone climbing into his lap and a pair of lips pressing into his own. Issei's eyes widened at the sudden intrusion of Kuroka in his lap as well as her lips, but he would kiss her back, his right hand gently rubbing up and down her left hip while his left arm gently held her to him around her back. The amorous Nekomata continued to kiss the devil boy, pushing into him harder as she forced him onto his back. He grunted at the new position but continued to kiss her back, their tongues dancing with each other. Kaneko opened her eyes and frowned. No fair. I claimed him first. The rook spoke up. Kuroka opened her eyes and pulled away, a strand of saliva connecting the king and servant together. Nyahaha. Sounds like dear Shirin is jealous. I'm not going to sleep with him yet, Nyahaha. She teased, giving Kaneko a wink. It's not the confidence he needs. Saturday is when the confidence he needs will be given. Training right now will not serve him any good, she stated, gently drawing her nails across his cheek and neck before pulling away. Would you kiss me then? Issei asked. I wanted to, Naya. She winked. It was then Roswis returned with a large tray. She moved over and sat it down, sitting down with the other three. The girls were way too eager to cook for you, Issei. They made a lot of different foods. Zenobia made what she called lasagna. Irina made Hyoudou noodles. Rias made ramen. Akeno made Japanese steak. Kiba decided to also cook, making a simple grilled cheese and tomato soup. Apparently, he got inspiration from a book. Issei blinked and nodded. Well, it all looks great. Let's all eat together. He smiled to the three in the tent with him who all sat in a circle around the tray, taking a plate and filling their plate with the different foods. The dinner together was silent, for Issei wasn't much of a dinner talker, but the atmosphere was light and happy. Kaneko was sitting next to Issei's right and Ross was on his left, both of them cuddling into their king. Kuroka on the other hand was sitting on the opposite end. Kaneko had stolen her spot, but she didn't complain. Kuroka was slowly seeing why all the girls were falling for the man, and she couldn't deny her budding feelings. She was falling in love with a younger man, and she had no real reason to deny it. He was super sweet. Kind, generous. He was a hard worker and not afraid to admit that he felt weak. That he needed help. He was humble. He also wasn't hard to look at either. Dinner went by pretty quick for Issei, despite half an hour passing. With the tray empty, Kuroka decided to speak up with a mischievous smile. Dinner was great, but I think we should move on to dessert, Naya. Issei smiled over at Kuroka. What did you have in mind? Kuroka's smile grew even wider as her eyes slowly drifted down to Issei's crotch. I'm thinking something creamy. Roswis and Kaneko both blushed, but Roswis started to smile. Something hot and creamy, you think? She asked, the amorous Valkyrie getting back into being her naughty self. Tasty? Kaneko asked. Issei laughed and smiled. He knew exactly what they were suggesting, but he decided to play. I think I would like that. He said with a smirk. Let's go get some fudge. He said, standing up. Kuroka and Roswis blinked at this, and he just smiled. I don't think it's a good idea for tonight. I have my reasons. He stated, offering his hands to the girls. So how about we leave, go to Japan and walk together to a candy shop? Can I get anything I want? Kaneko asked. As much as you want. Issei stated for her with a warm smile. My treat. Kaneko nodded and with that, took Issei's hand. Teleport us. She demanded. Kaneko had a sweet tooth. After arriving in the backyard of Issei's house, the four of them headed out. Roswis was holding Issei's left hand and Kaneko held Issei's right. Kuroka walked behind Issei, enjoying the warm night air. So, how does it feel to have a harem? Roswis asked curiously. You don't seem all that excited. Issei shrugged. Feels good, I guess. I have a lot of people that care for me and I care for them. It's hard work to be sure, but I'm not nothing if not a hard worker. I bet you are excited about all the hex you get. Roswis teased. Nyahahaha. Kuroka giggled from behind. Hero Valkyrie. Issei rolled his eyes. You have your mind in the gutter all the time, don't you? Roswis shrugged. I found someone to let loose with. Is that so bad? No. Issei said quickly, but full of sincerity. I'm not like you though. I mean I had fun with you, but hex isn't on my mind. Kuroka hummed at that. Do you not want to have hex with us? Issei shrugged. It's not that I don't want to, I just don't constantly think about it. I enjoy it, but it's not my priority. You just need to get laid more. Roswis stated. Kuroka nodded with a hum of affirmation. You'll enjoy it with me. Kaneko stated quietly. Issei laughed. Perhaps you are all right. Time will tell. He stated as they finally arrived at the candy shop. Issei released Kaneko's hand to open the door before holding it open for the three women. He entered behind them and Kaneko immediately shot forward for the candy, taking a bag and filling it with chocolate and even more chocolate. Issei chuckled and looked around himself. Any suggestions? He asked, browsing through the assortment of candy bars. Big names and local made. I've never had chocolate before. Issei stated. Kuroka raised a brow at that but said nothing. The store owner, however, gasped. You've never had chocolate? Well, you must try my fudge. I made a fresh batch not an hour ago. Here, the man stated. He spoke very quickly. He cut a piece of the warm rich chocolate fudge and placed it on a toothpick. Issei gently took the offering and took the piece of chocolate into his mouth. The way Issei's eyes widened got the two older women to laugh and the shop owner to smile. But yes. Issei swallowed and nodded. Wow, that's wow. How much for kilogram or 2 pounds of fudge? For you my boy, I'll give you a 25% off. You look like a nice lad who will come back anyway. So for a kilogram of fudge, it will be 1600 yen. Issei quickly took out 2000 yen and placed it on the counter. Keep the change as a tip. Issei smiled warmly. Kuroka and the others got in line and placed their food onto the counter. Kuroka got a tinfoil wrapped straight dark chocolate bar. Roswis grabbed some caramels and Kaneko got an assortment of candy in a bag. The shop owner started to ring up all the goods after Issei stated it was all one purchase. Issei paid the man once more and said his goodbyes before the four devils left the parlor and started to eat their food while slowly walking back to Issei's house. Issei's mind was focused on one thing, despite the woman walked with him that should be his attention. The rating game. Chapter 33. The rating game was only an hour away and Issei was pacing the starting room. He was nervous and his pacing reflecting just how nervous he was. This was his first rating game as a king. Rias and Akeno were playing a chess match, Kiba was reading, Kuroka and Kaneko were meditating, Irina and Zenobia were shining their swords. Roswis on the other hand was staring at Issei. Issei, will you stop pacing? Everything will be okay. Rias said as she took one of Akeno's rooks. How can you be so sure? Last time I lead something, you all got hurt, he exclaimed, rubbing his hair. It seemed ever since Olympus, Issei's gotten a lot more humble and fearful. Issei, do you have faith in us? Akeno asked, looking over her shoulder at Issei. With my life. Issei said seriously. Then that's all that matters. Akeno said, a blush on her face. The other members in the room all had blushes, except Kiba. You lead us well. You cannot let your defeat put you down. You are extremely smart with your plans. Guide us the way you want to, and we'll win. Kiba stated. We all trust you. Naya, if you win, I'll give you a big kiss, she teased. The girls in the room glared at Kuroka in jealousy. Issei chuckled. Oh, so I don't get a kiss now? That's so mean. He whined dramatically before he sighed. You're alright. I should just trust my gut and stop worrying so much. You say that now, but you seem to keep ignoring our advice. Rias pointed out. What's going on, Issei? I don't know. Just scared, I guess, that I'll fail, and it won't be just me getting hurt. If you fail, then you'll have to do better the next time. You can't be good immediately and be infallible. Roswis stated. But what if you get hurt? Then we get hurt. We're not damsels in distress, Issei. Rias stated with a bit of anger. Are you really that worried about us being so weak that we can't take care of ourselves? You're putting all of this on your shoulders when we are just as capable of handling our own weight. She stated, trying to get the point through by being a bit harsh. Naya, we're not weak. Stop treating us like we are and let us fight together. You are not alone. Kuroka stated. Issei sighed and rubbed his head. I just don't want to see any of you get hurt. We can't promise we won't get hurt or injured or even lose a limb, but you have to let us try and fight for ourselves instead of taking everything on by yourself. Sweetie, please understand. I just imagine you all in the position I was back on Olympus, dead on the table and no one is able to help you. I got lucky. Issei. That is enough. Kuroka stated, narrowing her eyes. Enough with the pity party. We get it. You died, but here you are right in front of us, acting like a scared child, all because something bad happened. Guess what, something bad has happened to all of us. Do you see us acting all sad and upset? No. Then you shouldn't either. She stated, getting very serious as the older woman stared at the king. Issei stared at Kuroka and frowned before he sighed. He then nodded. I get it. Do you get it? Kuroka asked, approaching him. Do you really get it or are you just saying that to go pouting again? I'm sorry. I get it. You're not weak. But Rome wasn't built in a day. Excuses. Kuroka snarled before she huffed. I'm not interested in bitch boys who whine and cry. She stated, crossing her arms. Issei narrowed his eyes. I'm not a bitch boy. I'm not interested in bitch boys who whine and cry. He stated again. I'm not a bitch boy. I can't hear you. I'm not a bitch, I get it. Then prove it, Kuroka stated, only for her to go stiff as Issei moved forward and grabbed her kimono, pulling her to him as he kissed her hard and passionately, as if trying to suck her soul out of her. The cat smiled and kissed him back for the few seconds before he released her. I'm not a bitch. I'll prove it this rating game, he stated, thumping his chest. Now I want to call him a bitch. Akeno stated, with a blush on her face. The other girls also were blushing, while staring at Issei hungrily. Issei blushed and looked away, humming as he tried to ignore the situation before him. The white magic circle appeared and a piece of paper landed on top of the chessboard. Rias picked it up and frowned. Even more restrictions. She said with a sigh. Restrictions. Besides me not wearing armor or my weapons. We can't go all out and destroy things. For us being power types, we can't just destroy the battlefield. So precision strikes. Issei hummed, stroking his cheek. So Akeno and Rias are at a disadvantage, while Zenobia and Just swing wildly, either this isn't good. Have faith. Kuroka warned, glancing over at Issei. Issei grumbled and nodded. We'll be fine. I'm stronger due to the training, so I should be enough to fight Sona's peerage. Are you going to be aggressive again? Akeno asked curiously. Of course maybe not as aggressive as before though. He stated, changing what he was saying at the glare from Kuroka. Kuroka seemed to have taken an aggressive stance with Issei. Much like a wife would. Issei sighed and sat down. I'm not good at formulating plans from the start. Rias, any ideas? You're a good tactician, right? Rias shrugged. I do what I can, but I have no experience either. Issei hummed and stroked his chin, thinking about it before shrugging. It's better you do it for now. I'll work on something for this. So, what should we do, Rias? Well, the battlefield is Kuomo, so both teams should have a rough estimate of where things are and where to go. We're located on the bottom floor in the shoe department, while Sona is upstairs across the mall in the food court. So, they have the upper hand in terms of the ground. Yay, but the food court is wide open. The shoe department is enclosed, so it's easier to defend. Issei pointed out. This is true, we should send Kiba and Zenobia to the garage. They would be best there since it's more open and they can use tier swords there well. Plus good cover there. Rias stated. Then we should add someone with magic, but our magic users cause too much damage. Kuroka should go. She can provide some long-range support and she can fire her senjutsu at range, so she could heal our people or at least help with their fatigue. Issei commented. Kuroka hummed. Not a bad idea. Use me as support. Issei nodded. I think so. Rias nodded. Yes. Yes, that's good. Are you sure you don't want to take control here, Issei? How about we do this together? Issei said with a smile. Rias nodded. Alright, so Kiba, Zenobia and Kuroka to the garage, what about the rest of us? Akeno asked. I want Arena with Akeno. Akeno has a smaller radius of her power, unlike Urias who covers a much wider area. It's easier for a swordsman to maneuver. Issei stated. I think they should head upstairs and cover the center area from above. Akeno can provide fire support. I will keep Kaneko with me as we also go the center, but we stay below. If Akeno can lay illusion magic to keep herself hidden, she can wait in ambush before smacking down the enemy. This leaves Rias and Raswas. How smart is Sona? She's extremely intelligent and is a master tactician. I expect traps then a lot of illusion magic, so if I were Sona what would I do? Issei hummed, thinking. Is there any off-limit location within the battlefield? The entire mall is the battlefield. Rias stated. Issei bit his lip and shrugged. Alright, I can't really think like her, but I think better in the moment. Alright, so Rias and Raswas, I want both of you to try to flank through the garage while the three in the garage distract. Try to sneak through. Get behind the enemy lines and take them out. If any trouble arises, you retreat to the garage as quick as possible or make it to us. Issei stated. Rias hummed. This isn't going to be easy, we're really weak to tacticians and smart plays. We're pure power on this team. Not entirely true, but I get your point. Issei stated. Alright, that's the plan then. Everyone in agreement. The nods and a few yays were heard, meant it was understood. Issei smiled and with that, everyone returned to their relaxation before the battle. Issei relaxed by taking a seat on the couch next to Kaneko and stealing some of her chocolate candies. Kaneko didn't seem to mind, in fact, she would reach up with one of her candy-coated chocolates and place it in his mouth. She had a very small smile on her face as she cuddled into Issei's side. It didn't take long. About 10 minutes later a large white magic circle appeared on the ground. Looks like it's time. Rias stated. Issei got up and the rest of the girls followed him onto the magic circle. After a 5-second wait, they were teleported and found themselves in the girls' shoe section. Issei looked around and hummed. Greetings. I am Grafia Lucifuge and I will be the arbiter for this match. This is match between Isseihyoudou and Sona Citri. Issei's base is located in the shoe department on the bottom floor. Sona's base is found upstairs in the food court. You have 10 minutes to prepare your battle plans. Rias was provided a map of the battlefield and everyone surrounded it just to take a look at where they were going to go. Nothing was said, but after a few minutes of studying, everyone went to do their own things. Issei moved out of the girls' shoe department and moved to a more secluded corner that had a mirror. He stared at himself in the mirror and gave a smile. I can do this, I've trained hard, I can do this. No more relying on myself only. I have my team with me. Issei stated. He removed his shirt. Issei would normally wear a gray t-shirt with a pair of gray shorts. If he was at school, he'd wear the school uniform, but his shirt would have the top 2 buttons unbuttoned and he would wear a gray t-shirt underneath. He didn't like how he couldn't breathe in the uniform, so he had unbuttoned the uniform and wore his nice gray t-shirts. It did have a design on it and it was just a black scorpion on it in a fighting position. Other than that, it was just a plain gray t-shirt. After removing his t-shirt, he rubbed down his chest with his hands, staring at himself in the mirror. Scars littered his form. Over both sides of his pecs, all over his stomach, his shoulders, neck. Everywhere was littered in scars. His chest and abs were much more defined than before, forming a very hard six-pack. His arms were muscular and there were still some soreness in his arms, but he figured that was just after workout pain. He took some hand wrap and started to wrap it around his wrist and his hand and knuckles. He kept his thumb free for movement. "I can do this," he muttered. From out of nowhere, Issei slightly jumped in surprise as a figure japed herself across his back and shoulders, smiling. "Naya, you can do what?" Kuroka teased, pressing her chin on his left shoulder to nuzzle into his face playfully. "I can win this. I can fight. I can be strong again. Naya, we told you you could do this. Just have to trust in yourself. After this rating game, you'll see what I mean, Naya." Issei reached up with his left hand and started to gently pet Kuroka on top of her head, forcing the amorous cat to start purring. "I know you guys told me, but I needed to tell myself this. Naya, don't need to worry so much. You're going to do better than you expect," Kuroka said, having total faith in her chosen mate. "I sure hope so," Issei said with a smile. "Boo-wonk." The horn was sounded, which meant the battle started. Issei spoke through the magic earpiece. "Move out," Issei called out, and everyone rushed to their positions. Kaneko and Issei started to walk down the hallways, heading towards the center. The center of the mall was just a large roundabout on 2 floors, and you could look down below from above. You could actually look down below from above everywhere except the departments. Issei and Kaneko arrived at the center, Issei wearing only his shorts. He was barefoot as well. "Why are you barefoot? It fits the ensemble better," he said. "I think I'd look ridiculous with shoes on but no shirt." "Why do you have no shirt?" "More range of movement. Boxers don't wear shirts and martial artists don't wear shoes. I am giving myself a free range of movement." "I see," Kaneko stated before she also took off her shoes, resting her tiny feet on the cold ground. "Don't go taking your shirt off now, don't need others distracted," Issei teased. Kaneko responded with a slap to his right thigh. "Sona said you were aggressive, but even I didn't expect you to the king to be out fighting so fast," spoke a male voice. Saji came swinging down from the ceiling using a wire from his sacred gear, which was a purple dragon-looking thing. He came swinging down with both feet extended. On his back was another person, a female. Issei dodged to the right from the kick, avoiding it, and turned to face Saji and the other woman, who was Ruruko Nomura. Issei smirked. "If she is so smart, why is there only 2 of you?" Issei asked with a smirk. "She's not reckless like you," Saji said, glaring at the boy. My, someone seems upset. Is it because I called your king stupid?" Issei taunted. Saji glared at Issei and charged at him. He came in with a right hook towards Issei's left jaw, in which Issei moved forward and to the left, getting into Saji's body. The right hook missed and grazed his neck, but this gave Issei the perfect moment to attack. Issei kneed Saji in the right thigh, which forced the pawn to stumble from the sudden strike to the meaty and muscular thigh. With the stumble, Issei sent another knee to the left thigh, which got the pawn to stumble backwards, and with that, was a quick punch to the gut, and Issei backed off. "Too aggressive. You acted out of anger and rage, so you were not thinking right. Get up and try again," Issei said, acting like a teacher. The punch sent Saji flying a few feet back and sending him onto his hands and knees, a bit of bile being spit up. Saji coughed and slowly stood up to his 2 feet. "You arrogant bastard." "Arrogant? That's not it at all. I am not trying to act superior, I am trying to help you. I don't need your help. You've been handed the silver spoon your entire life, giving you this strength and ability. How dare you look down at me?" Saji roared in fury, once more charging at Issei. He would tackle Issei's midsection, lifting the king into the air, but Issei quickly grounded himself and lifted Saji up by his own midsection, before tossing the pawn a few yards away. Issei frowned. "Look down at you, is that what you think I'm doing? It looks like you who is arrogant. You think that I haven't worked to be where I'm at? That I haven't suffered? You think that I was just given this? How dare you? I have suffered more than you ever had, I reckon," he countered back. Issei looked over his shoulder and saw Kaneko dodging the other pawn. Her feet worked much better than before, using her superior mobility. She had her cat ears and tail out, which meant she was in Nekomata mode. This gave her even more agility. "Screw you," Saji spat, standing up before he fired several lines out from his sacred gear. 2 lines went right towards Issei, who had shifted on his left foot, pivoting away, while the other one went for the lights above. "Now," Saji stated. Issei noticed that Saji and Ruruko immediately put on some sunglasses. "Should," Issei stated, immediately lunging for Kaneko and holding her to his chest, as the large chandelier above popped in a bright light. Issei yelled out in pain as he was blinded, his vision disappearing into nothing but blackness. Issei released Kaneko when she gave him a tap. "You okay?" she asked. Issei frowned. "I'm blind. I can't see anything. I didn't expect this." "You can still hear, yes. Just listen to what I say," Kaneko stated. "Punch from your 11 o'clock." Issei immediately put his palm up, listening to the best he could. The punch from Saji struck his palm, and Issei would counter with a kick to the direction of where he assumed Saji was. Saji let out a yelp and Issei heard Saji backing away. "Bet him together he can't take us both on," Saji stated, and with that, Issei was tackled before Kaneko could even tell him about Haruko. Issei grunted, only for his face to get punched in the left cheek and jaw, sending a blob of blood out of his mouth. Issei put his fists up as best he could to defend himself, but even hearing couldn't help him. Punches and kicks to his ribs, face, chest, stomach, thighs, legs, even his groin. "Ikeno. We request help now," Kaneko stated. "And help," Ikeno stated. "I have their Momo and Tsubasa with us. Issei's in bad shape. He's been blinded and can't defend himself." "Naya, he'll be fine." Shirin, fire Senjutsu blast to him. "Heal his eyes." Kuroka stated. Kaneko's eyes widened and she quickly formed a ball of white Senjutsu energy between her palms before she thrusted her hands out and the ball of Senjutsu flew across the field. Saji and Haruko both turned only to dodge out of the way, thinking it was meant for them. It was only when it struck Issei in the chest and didn't do anything that Saji's eyes widened. "Shit, she just did something to him, get the cat," he called out. On it, Haruko stated and once more leapt into the fray against the Nekomata. Issei's eyes focused in as Saji winded back a punch and flung it at him. Issei reached up with his right hand and grabbed onto the wrist of the pawn. Issei chuckled, giving Saji a bloody smile. "My turn," he stated. Issei's body was covered in bruises and there were a few teeth missing from his mouth. His lips were fat and purple, with a few cuts on them. He had a black eye on his right eye, but it didn't shut his eyes down. His nose was crooked, meaning it was broken. He had several bruises along his right ribs, meaning some were broken. Saji's eyes widened at Issei catching his wrist, only to be sent flying by a powerful punch into his chin from an uppercut. "I have to give you credit, that blinding move was brilliant." Saji wiped his lips and grinned. "My master isn't stupid. She knew that you don't make your plans well in advance, so we used that to our advantage." Sona Citri's queen and knight retired. Spoke Grafia. "What, how?" Saji gasped in surprise. "Naya, that took too long, relegating me to a support role," Mini Issei. Kuroka's teasing voice came through the magic earpiece. "That would be the combination of my newest pawn, Kuroka, with Zenobia and Kiba, my knights," Issei stated. "I'm sure you all knew about my newest addition, but it seems you couldn't plan around her. I sent her to the garage to assist the two knights in a support role," Issei stated, with his arms crossed and a smirk on his face. "Sweep around and hook up with Rias," Issei spoke into the earpiece. "Except for you, Kiba. Hook up with Ikeno," he stated. The others all gave their confirmations and Issei once more pivoted to dodge a punch from Saji. "You bastard, why must you look down on us?" he demanded, seeing his smirk. "Funny. Wasn't it you who looked down on us when you pulled that blinding stunt?" Issei asked, ducking under a haymaker and following with an uppercut. "You are too emotional," Issei said, as he slammed his shoulder into Saji's stomach since he was launched into the air from the uppercut. This sent Saji tumbling on the ground. One of Sona Citri's pawns retired. "Haruko?" Saji exclaimed, looking over at Kaneko who had just finished off Saji's partner. "Damn it, I'm not strong enough," Issei sighed. "I wasn't either until I trained hard," he stated. "Why do you fight, Saji?" Issei asked. "What? Why do you fight? What gives you this energy to fight me? For what purpose?" "For my king, for her dreams," Issei shook his head. "You'll never reach your full potential as a fighter with that motivation," Issei exclaimed, pointing at Saji. "You should fight for yourself, for your survival, for your dreams." I can't do that, I must fight for my king." "Then you will never have the chance to beat me." "While noble in fighting for another person's dreams, you do not fight to protect her. You do not fight for a good reason to get strong. You know why I fight. To beat people up?" Saji exclaimed, obviously lost. He was being beaten down and ridiculed. Told he was wrong. "I fight to keep my family safe. I fight to make sure that we can all go home safely. I fight so others can live safely." But they are here fighting with you now. You aren't fighting to keep them safe. You are mistaken. Fighting to keep them safe doesn't mean to keep them from fighting at all. It means to keep them from getting hurt or killed. I trained with Kaneko here and she got strong with me, strong enough to fight for herself. Should she needed me to be there if she was losing, I would have done so. I have faith in my team." He smiled at Saji. "Do you understand the differences?" Issei asked, approaching the pawn who was on his hands and knees. Saji stared at the ground and nodded. I get it. I won't get strong unless I find a real good reason to fight. You can fight for the dreams of your friends, but making it your only goal will only harm yourself, as you should have a reason to fight for yourself," Issei said, kneeling down and taking Saji's head in his hands. A right hand on Saji's chin and his left on the back of Saji's head. "I thank you, Hyoudou. I will train hard, I promise." "Good," Issei said before twisting his hands in a jerking motion, snapping Saji's neck and sending him to the medical bay. One of Sona's pawns retired. Issei let out a sigh and took a seat against a soda machine. Kaneko took a seat next to him and started to use her senjutsu on him. "Thanks," Issei said with a smile, gently petting the white-haired rook on her head, which got her to purr softly. "How goes it everyone?" Issei asked. "We've successfully spotted Sona and one of her bishops. They are held out at the food court behind a barrier," Rias stated. Akeno smiled. "We're almost done here. Kiba, Irina and myself have got the rook and bishop on the ropes. Good. Surround Sona but don't make any moves. Akeno, finish up there and link back up with the others. Kaneko and I are taking a small break to replenish ourselves." "I needed a break," Issei stated. "We'll wait for you here," Rias stated. In a large room, with several magic circles acting as TVs, there were several people. Seraphol Leviathan and Serzich's Lucifer were the two devils. There was Azazel, the leader of the fallen angels, as well as Odin from the Norse and Artemis from Olympus. "Lord Odin. I didn't get to ask this earlier, but what happened to the Cows Brigade on your end?" Serzich's asked. "Ares and Athena arrived suddenly and we surrounded them. We have several members captured and being interrogated," Odin said, rubbing his beard. "This is concerning. They knew exactly when to strike when we were vulnerable. Might be a few moles located in our mythologies." "Yes, I also came to that conclusion," Azazel stated. "Luckily, our boy was there on Olympus to keep us safe." "Yes, it is a blessing to know Issei was here," Odin stated. "If Athena and Ares didn't show up, we would have lost more than we did, maybe even a god or goddess." Artemis was awfully silent, staring at Issei from her screen, a blush on her face. "This isn't fair," Seraphol stated. "Issei's too overpowered and shouldn't be allowed to fight," Seraphol stated with a pout, her staff clutched between both of her hands. Odin let out a laugh. "I wonder how overpowered you think he'll be when we're done with him." Odin snickered. "Speaking of Artemis, how goes our project with Hephaestus?" Serzich's asked. Artemis was distracted but woke up once Azazel prodded her. "It's going fine. The materials provided are just taking a long time to forge. We're making a weapon unlike any other weapon for a god. It's not easy." Artemis asked, as if thinking the Devil King was being impatient. "Worry not. We worry little about when it's done. We just want to be kept in the loop," he replied. "It was decided by the leaders of our mythologies to create this weapon." Odin rubbed his beard. "What exactly are you making?" "I signed off on permission to give the devil a weapon of the gods, but I wasn't informed what it was." Serzich's smiled. "It's a gauntlet, much like that of the boosted gear or divine dividing in form. It would be like the gauntlets he has now, though those gauntlets he has won't do much of anything. We decided to create it using the iron used that created Thor's hammer. We also combined our magical essences into it. Mine, Hades and Zeus. To mix with the molten metal, we added the blood of Samuel, the dragon eater. With this, Issei can inject the toxic blood into a draconic opponent." Odin continued to rub his beard. He did this every time he was in deep thought. "Am I to assume the idea behind this weapon was in case Issei came across office?" Serzich's nodded. "Exactly the idea. She is the leader of the Cows Brigade and we both know Issei is gunning for them. Then I am glad to have signed off an agreement, but what about the other mythologies? Surely they know about this?" "No. This is all done in secret. Only the Alliance knows about this and we have every right to give someone like Issei a weapon if we chose to," Artemis stated. "Though I don't know if the weapon will be used on office," she said. "Why not?" Serzich's asked the goddess of the hunt curiously. "Knowing him, he'll just seduce the dragon god," she said with amusement. Azazel immediately started laughing and Odin let out a chuckle. "I guess that is a possibility," Serzich's said. "Let's hope it comes to that and not a fight." Issei got up from a 5-minute break, feeling his energy recharged. He took Kaneko's hand and helped her up before they started heading towards Ria's group. A rook and a bishop from Sona Citri. Retired. As Issei arrived on the second floor, Akeno, Kiba and Irina all came together and walked together. "Ara, you look like you were put through a wood chipper," Akeno said with a bit of concern. "I'm fine, just need some senjutsu healing therapy and some rest." "Well, I do need my ribs fixed, so I guess the medical bay too," Issei droned on. "You okay?" he asked Akeno's group. "We're fine. A few bruises but everything went well," Kiba stated. Issei nodded and they finally arrived at the food court with Rias. Hiroka smiled at Kaneko. "Shirin, you did a good job, sister's proud of ya, Naya." She winked at the younger sister. Kaneko blushed and looked away. "Naya, don't give me the cold shoulder. Now, why don't you use your senjutsu to check for Kai?" Kuroka stated. Issei glanced over at Kuroka. Something was off. Rias looked at Kuroka. "Why should she? We know where they are." Rias stated and it was then Issei knew. Sona wasn't in the barrier. Kaneko closed her eyes and the visible white aura of her Kai expanded from her body and after 10 seconds, she opened her eyes. "Sona is on the roof." Kuroka grinned. "Naya hahaha. I knew all along. And you didn't tell us. We've been standing here like idiots," Rias said, glaring at the cat. "Naya, I just wanted Shirin to get better at using her powers," she said innocently. Rias narrowed her eyes at Kuroka, not believing her. Issei chuckled and stared at the bishop. "We're going to go ahead and head up to the roof now. Be a good girl and don't come after us," he said, giving Ria the TSK symbol with his finger. "Arrogant bastard," Ria said, staring at Issei from behind the barrier. Issei chuckled. "Only a little bit." The peerage arrived at the roof a few minutes later, staring at Sona. Kiba and Arena were both down with Ria. "It seems I underestimated you," Sona stated. "You're a lot more powerful than I thought even after being injured." "It's not just me," Issei said, shaking his head. "My team got stronger and I also got their opinions for plans. Kuroka was also a huge help, keeping Kiba and Zenobia safe. I wondered if sending everyone after you would have been better. Considering your plan to hide up here, it would have been a really good plan to do so. We would have lost, I think," Issei said with a small smile. "But that's why these rating games are a good way to learn and improve. I agree the victory is yours, Isseihyoudou. I surrender. The rating game is finished. The winner is Isseihyoudou, Grafia called out after the horn sounded. With that, Isseihyoudou had his first rating game victory after becoming a king. Chapter 34. After the rating game, Issei had been taken to the medical bay of the Gremory family. After an hour of checkups, Issei had returned home and gotten some dinner delivered before he retired for the night. Issei was absolutely exhausted, having to fight so hard against Sona and the peerage, as well as walking home. He had went right to the showers, quickly showered alone and collapsed into his bed. About 5 minutes after his head hit the pillow, Issei passed out. About an hour into his sleep, Issei found himself dreaming. This dream was bizarre. It was just a black circle hovering in midair. "Well, this is weird," he stated, looking around. As soon as he said something, the platform was immediately lit on fire on the edges, surrounding the gladiator on all sides. It was then 2 large red paws, or claws, appeared on the platform, yet it didn't tilt in the direction of the large paws. It was then 2 bright emerald green eyes shone through the fire and darkness before a large head appeared through the fire. "Whoa, a dragon," Issei said in amazement. "You must be my new host," the large dragon stated, his voice booming and echoing. "Host? I already had a sacred gear," he stated. "I can't have another one." "Oh? You already know about sacred gears? How intriguing. Oh, and you aren't a child either, you're old, very old. Who are you?" "I am Isseihyoudou, a devil king. It's nice to meet you. May I know who you are?" The dragon smiled and spread his wings. "I am Drake, the Red Dragon Emperor. The Red Dragon of Domination," he spoke with pride. "Oh, the opposite to Vali," he spoke. "You know of the current White Dragon Emperor?" Drake asked in surprise. "Kicked his ass too," Issei said, crossing his arms. "The bastard helped the people who made my life hell a long time ago." He frowned. "I do not like him," he stated. Drake started to laugh, a big toothy grin spreading on his face. "I sense no deceit in you. My host had just perished to the White Dragon, and now I am given to someone who beat the White without me. This is going to be very interesting. Well, Isseihyoudou, we are partners now. My powers are now yours to use. It is a pleasure to meet you." Issei laughed, smiling. "I have the boosted gear now on top of everything going on for me. This is rich." He snickered. "Oh, this will be great. I think I'll keep the sacred gear a secret for a big reveal. I think it'll be amusing to see the faces." He smiled. "I can't wait to see what you end up doing," Drake said, before Issei woke up suddenly, his eyes fluttering open as a few trickles of sunlight drifted through the crack in the curtain. He let out a yawn and stretched, popping his back before rubbing his right shoulder and rolling it. Was that all a dream?" he wondered. "No, it was not. You are now the Red Dragon Emperor. I can speak in your mind here. I have a gauntlet that will manifest at your will. I shall now go and access all of your thoughts, memories and your past. Enjoy," Issei muttered before looking around his bedroom. He was not alone. Roswis, Kuroka and Kaneko were all in his bed, holding on to different parts of him. Kuroka had taken his right side, coiled up in a ball next to him. She wasn't cuddling his arm or anything, but her face was next to his right arm. Roswis had took his left arm in between her breasts, using him as a body pillow, her head laying on his shoulder. Kaneko was in between his legs, holding his right leg like a prized stuffed animal to her chest, her face laying on his meaty thigh. Issei was only wearing his underwear to bed, being a straight black underwear with a golden trim. As soon as Issei had muttered what he said, he watched as the ears on top of Kuroka's head twitched. The cat was awakening. Kaneko also had her cat ears and tail out, but only Kuroka seemed to have heard him. Kuroka's tail started to swish slightly as her eyes fluttered open, the hazel eyes looking up at Issei before a smile spread across her face. "I enjoy what Issei?" Kuroka asked, uncoiling from her ball, which got Issei a very generous view of her breasts due to the very thin kimono that she wore. It was identical to the one she wore normally, but it didn't have a sash on it or the beads. It was her sleepwear. She pulled herself over and hovered over Issei, a smirk on her face. Are you offering me to enjoy myself? She teased, cooing before leaning down and pressing her lips to the boy, her hair hanging around him like a curtain. Issei smiled into her lips, kissing her back with passion, his right hand gently rubbing up and down her left side and hip, which got the kitty to start purring in the kiss. Hiroka released the lip lock and smiled at Issei. I sense a power in you, someone has a sacred gear, she said with a smile. Issei blushed. Yay, just learned I got it today, he said, not expecting being found out so easily. Oh? What sacred gear is it? Is it strong, Naya? I don't want to tell you just yet, I want it to be a surprise. Oh, won't it be a surprise? He grinned. Naya, give me a hint. No. Issei said with a smirk. Naya, you're so mean. She whined, before kissing Issei's lips again for a few seconds. You children really have to be so loud in the morning. Roswa said from Issei's left, obviously sleepy and grumpy in the morning. She had her eyes open, staring at Issei without any sort of jealousy. I'm not a child. He said to Roswas with a smirk. Sure, acting like it. Roswas countered. Well, if that's the case, I can't kiss you anymore. I mean, an adult kissing a child is bad. He said with an even bigger smirk. Roswas narrowed her eyes at Issei and immediately grabbed him by the back of his neck. She yanked on him and kissed him hard and rough, passionate. Issei chuckled and rubbed her right side as well as he kissed her back for a few seconds. Nice try. Roswas said. Pedophile confirmed. Issei teased. Roswas rolled her eyes and flicked Issei between his eyes. Come on and get up. Let's get some breakfast and get back to your training. Roswas stated. Issei blinked and bit his lip. I'd like to train on my own for most of the day. I'll do some senjutsu later, but I want to train on my own until then. Issei said. Roswas turned to him. What's with the sudden change of plans? You wanted to train with us before. I can't tell you, Issei said. Kuroka smirked. He wants to train with his new sacred gear, Naya. Kuroka stated. Issei glared at her. Naya haha. New sacred gear? You mean you lost your sacred gear from? I guess that makes sense, she said, rubbing her chin. Do you know what it is? I do, but I want to keep it a secret, please. Issei said. It was then the last member of the bed started to wake, her arm squeezing Issei's thigh tight as she let out a yawn. She opened her eyes and stared up at Issei, who looked back down at her. Kaneko's tail started to swish at his gaze. Good morning, Kaneko. Kaneko sat up and curled up Issei's upright body and planted her lips on the king. Issei kissed her back with just as much passion as with the others, rubbing her sides with both hands this time to hold her. Kaneko held the kiss for about 10 seconds before releasing the boy from their lip lock. Good morning. She stated. As I was saying, I'd like to keep it a secret. I assure you, it'll surprise everyone and blow their minds, and I want to reveal it at just the right moment. So if all three of you can keep it a secret, keep the fact I have one a secret, I'd appreciate it. Naya, alright. I won't talk about it anymore. Alright, I understand. I won't talk about it or push it, but at least let us train with you on the other things once in a while. Okay. Issei nodded. Thank you, all of you, and sure, Rose. I won't mind at all. He stated, using Roswas's nickname, which got the Valkyrie to blush. Kuroka smirked at the woman but said nothing. Issei got up from the bed, his body still sore but no longer covered in bruises. He stretched and popped a few more joints before he turned to the girls. I'm going to go take a bath, any of you want to follow? He asked with a wink. All three women immediately started to get a change of new clothes and undressed to follow Issei to the baths. After the bath, Issei and the girls, freshly kissed and cleaned, headed downstairs for breakfast. At the stove was Akeno, who looked over her shoulder at the sound of the newcomers. Yufufufufu. Sounds like someone had some fun up there, no room for little Almi? Akeno asked in a fake pout. Issei gave her a grin. I told you anytime you want, he chuckled at a red face. So what's for breakfast? I'm assuming you waited to eat with the rest of us. Ara, was I supposed to make food for you? She asked in fake surprise. Issei smiled. You don't have to. Just thought that's what you usually do. I can make something myself then. Yufufufu. I made you breakfast. I don't mind it. I made everyone breakfast. Thank you very much, Akeno. You're very sweet. Issei complimented her. He moved to the table but halted before he stared at Akeno's back. After 10 seconds, he walked over to Akeno and made sure she wasn't going to touch anything hot before he pulled her backwards. He then planted his lips onto her own, which got the fallen angel hybrid's eyes to widen in surprise. After a 10-second kiss, he kissed the paralyzed woman who stared at him with bug eyes. Issei gave her a smile. Akeno placed her oven mitts down and quickly wrapped her arms around Issei's neck, kissing him deeply, hungrily, passionately. Issei smiled and wrapped his arms around Akeno's back, kissing her back just as deep. Akeno's heart was beating so fast in her chest, overjoyed at what was happening. Issei released her and backed away, before pecking her cheek. I've not forgotten you. He said. Akeno was blushing hard, turning from a teasing woman to just a normal woman. I didn't think you knew why. She whispered, stuttering slightly. You're a very kind and beautiful woman, you're super kind to everyone, and I enjoy talking to you. Being teased by you is enjoyable, I like you Akeno, how about we go on a date tonight? He smiled. Yes, Akeno said with a smile, immediately hugging his neck. Issei chuckled and nodded before backing off. Breakfast will be ready in just a few minutes, she exclaimed. Issei nodded and went to the breakfast table, sitting down next to Rias. So, what are your plans today, Issei? Rias asked, sipping on some tea. Issei took the pitcher of ice water and poured him a glass. He took a few sips before shrugging. Going to train for a bit by myself this morning and afternoon. Followed by training with Kaneko and Kuroka. Then, I'm taking Akeno out tonight on a date. Rias frowned at that. A date, Issei. Did you want one too? Well. Yes. Then I will try to take you on one. Maybe tomorrow. We have school. After school. You have homework. I can do them later. You should focus on your school work. You've been out of class for too long anyway and have to make up. Let's try for next weekend. Okay. Issei stated with a shrug. It was then breakfast was being served on a large tray. Akeno started serving the breakfast, which was pancakes, hash browns, mixed fruit cut into bite-sized pieces and some bacon. Issei smiled and quickly dug into his meal, sitting with his peerage around him. He sat with Rias to his left, Kuroka to his right, Kaneko to the left of Kuroka. Then it was Kiba, Zenobia, Irina, Roswas, then Akeno, then Rias, then Issei all in a big circle. Issei had a pleased smile on his face as he dipped his pancake in a bit of maple syrup before chewing it. Oh, he loved food. Breakfast wasn't quiet, but no one really spoke to Issei. Irina and Zenobia spoke about the Bible, Kuroka and Kaneko quietly discussed Senjutsu training, and Roswas wasn't speaking, but going over a lesson plan. Roswas had been hired by the high school to teach. Issei on the other hand was talking to the dragon in his sacred gear. So, what exactly is the best way to train to use your powers? Physical ability is very important and you seem to handle that well. From there, it's practice and imagination. My ability is vast and even I can't really explain it all, nor can I tell you what you can do truly outside of the basics. My power allows me to double my power every 10 seconds. I am also able to transfer your strength to another person. So if you wish to increase the power of that red-haired girl's power, you could. Make it bigger, stronger. Deadlier. Drake replied. I see, so it's more meditation. Not exactly, I mean you can, but just thinking about your abilities and just practicing on them. There's unlimited potential with a devil, especially with a boosted gear. I'm sure you will figure it out. You're not that much help, you know that. Keep complaining. I will help out when I can. Drake grunted, annoyed with the cocky little devil. Sure you will. Useless lizard. Keep it up and I'll just not do anything for you. Drake threatened. Issei couldn't help himself. Oh, so you'll just be like you are now. Silence. He. Issei chuckled mentally. Issei finished his breakfast and stood up, collecting his plate and taking it to the sink to wash it. After washing it, he walked to the table. Thanks for the lovely breakfast, Akeno. Alright you guys, I'm off to Everest to do my training as always. The girls said their goodbyes and Issei disappeared in his blue magic circle. Upon arrival in his tent, Issei took a seat on the ground and stared at his right hand. He closed his eyes, took a few deep breaths, and tried to will forth a boosted gear. Not even 2 seconds into the concentration, a red gauntlet appeared on his right hand. Boosted gear second liberation, boomed the loud sacred gear, using Drake's voice. He said. This is really cool, Issei claimed as he stared at the gauntlet. The red gauntlet was a dark blood red, stretching from his hand to his elbow. The gauntlet looked identical to the ones he used, with the claws on his fingertips sharp and deadly. There was large emerald gems sitting on the back of his hands. There were several golden spikes jutting out the sides, angled backwards. This won't do. Issei claimed, once more closing his eyes and concentrating on his weapon. The boosted gear once more transformed, this time the golden spikes were removed and there was now a golden spike that was resting against the backside of his upper arm, now that the golden spike was jutting out the bottom of the gear. With this, Issei could use his elbow as a much more deadlier weapon. There was also 4 golden spikes, about an inch in length, where his knuckles would be. Perfect. He grinned. Unbelievable, I've never witnessed this. A wielder changing the form of the boosted gear to fit their style. Then you must have had some really unimaginative users then. I suppose this is true. Most of my users were just brutes. You will be a very interesting host to have. Glad to entertain you. Now, any advice or help? Most users of the boosted gear had long-range attacks using my power. Very destructive. How accurate was it usually? Doesn't need much accuracy with the destruction it has. Then it won't work for me. Issei stated, standing up. He stepped outside, the bitter cold air striking his naked chest. He once again removed his shirt and shoes and placed them in the tent. You're a workout nut. Drake commented. Issei shrugged and stretched, taking in a deep breath of the cold air before exhaling. I have a reason to be. I do try to make it not all about working out, but I am not strong enough yet to be where I want to be. I need more skill, more power. What is your long-term goal? To shake up the entire world and make it better. Perhaps a global takeover? He laughed before shrugging. I want to make it to being a Mayu and change the underworld. Then I shall help you achieve that goal. Any goal you have is my own. Such is the fate of the heavenly dragons. I think fate is what you make it. There's nothing stopping you from not allowing us access into the boosted gear. I've never considered that. It'd probably be very boring though. I'm assuming you live your life through our eyes, through our body. The pain we take, you take. Mostly true, we barely take any of the pain you take. Issei hummed and raised his right hand that had the gauntlet and closed his eyes, trying to focus on something. About a minute later, a small ball of red started to appear. After another minute, Issei opened his eyes and he punched the ball, sending a beam of energy. It wasn't massive, as Issei started to sweat from exertion. The beam of energy was about an inch in diameter. When it penetrated the cloud cover, it shattered the clouds in a circle about 100 feet in diameter. Issei laughed. Even while controlling the power is so much. Issei said. Drake said nothing and kept quiet, curious about his partner's actions. Issei closed his eyes and once more formed a ball of red energy within 20 seconds this time, launching it again into the skies, once more showing just how destructive it could be. It goes where I wanted. He commented before he closed his eyes and formed another ball of red energy. The ball started to change shape before it dissipated and Issei panted a bit. Buck, I almost had it, Issei cursed, once more concentrating. Once again, the ball changed shape but it dissipated. All this concentrating is hard. You won't get it the first try. I don't know what you are doing, but you won't achieve everything the first time. I'm just impatient. Issei stated, sitting down on the ground. Clear your mind. Spoke the voice of Kuroka in Issei's head. Focus on your goal, and only your goal. Clear your mind of all thoughts except the one goal. Don't think about what will happen if you fail focuses. Issei took several breaths and exhales, his clenched up facial features slowly softening. His breathing started to slow down as Issei got into the zone. Issei lifted up his right hand and the ball of energy once more formed at his fingertips. Another breath. Another exhale. The ball started to change shape, turning into a pear. Breath in. Breathe out. Slowly but surely, the energy reshaped itself, forming into an arrowhead. Inhale and exhale. The energy elongated and the arrowhead thinned, forming a spike. The spike was thinner than the rest of the energy, which was shaped like a shaft of a spear. It was about 5 feet in length. Another breath came and another exhale. The weapon was now 6 inches in length and the tip of the spike changed, turning into a pyramidal shape. Issei opened his eyes and stood up, holding the red energy like a javelin. Issei grinned and spotted a rock jutting out of the mountain. He threw the energy like one would a javelin. He leaned backwards and took 2 steps before he threw the energy over his head, sending it sailing before the javelin of dragon energy struck the rock and went clean through without destroying the rock. No. I did it, Issei cheered, laughing. Buckye. Well done, I have never seen the energy of the dragon used that way, Drake spoke in amazement. Issei quickly pulled up a magic circle and all around him stood test dummies made of gelatin. Issei grinned and quickly formed the weapon, known as a pilum. He tossed it much like a baseball and struck the test dummy right in the center of the chest. Issei smirked and summoned another energy. Let's really go for it, only headshots rapid fire, Issei cheered himself on. Issei started flinging the spears with different hand motions. Some he just flung sideways, others behind him, others in front, some of them with a curve, so it curved from the air and hit the target. He laughed and kept throwing, striking over and over and over. It took him a total of 20 seconds, but he took out all 30 test dummies around him, all with clean through head shots. The energy went right through the center of the head. Through the nose and back out the head. You're a monster. Drake commented. Says the dragon. Issei grinned. You're stupidly strong. Issei shrugged. It's a gift. Now then, I think it's time we work on other things with this boosted gear. I'm with you. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.